Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Salatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh and a very good morning. My dearest brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for being here this morning. On behalf of Anita, on behalf of the entire team at Qasr Salam, the support team of the Journey to Recovery program, on behalf of Dr. Hazli, Ustaz Muhammad Noor, my husband and I, would like to thank all of you for coming here this morning. For those of you that are struggling with your illness, we would like to applaud your efforts in coming here because we know that it's not easy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease everything for you, show you a way out of your struggles and heal you completely, inshallah. For those of you that are here supporting the patient, thank you so much. We truly hope that you will find your support too today. We hope that you will find the calmness and peace as well, because I know, being a patient myself, that it is really difficult at times because you don't fully understand the illness of the patient, and I know it is a struggle for you as well. So thank you so much. May Allah reward you. And also for those of you that are here to learn, thank you so much. Thank you for caring. Thank you for reaching out. We truly hope that you find the good from the program today and be able to share it with others in future, inshallah. Today we are truly honored to have with us once again Dr. Hazli Zakaria Ustaz Muhammad Noor. Thank you so much for coming here. Dr. Hazli is a clinical psychiatrist at UKM Medical Center and also a senior lecturer at UKM. Dr. Hazli was not my psychiatrist when I was battling my illness. Jumpa Dr. Hazli, betul-betul rezeki, alhamdulillah. Dr. Hazli, sebenarnya your reputation precedes you because after the first Journey to Recovery session we did the last time, a lot of people actually know you, and I've only heard good things and amazing things about you, alhamdulillah. So thank you so much for coming here again. We truly hope you can impart your knowledge, expertise, experience with all of us today, inshallah. And of course, once again, with us, Ustaz Muhammad Noor. Ustaz Muhammad Noor is, of course, not only an Ustaz, but he is also a spiritual healer. Ustaz has been with us since March 2014, so it's been about 3 years plus, alhamdulillah. Ustaz Muhammad Noor is just that person, when you go to his classes, it's very refreshing because you feel like a wake-up call every single time. And so I really hope that today, Ustaz, you'll be able to share the knowledge that you have related to whatever we, all of us go through, our struggles, hardships, illnesses, inshallah. Thank you so much. May Allah reward the both of you. Okay, so for, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Anita. I am the Managing Director and Founder of Qasr Salam. I will be the moderator today. I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder 3 years ago, so I am a recovering patient of one of the mental illnesses. And the thing about mental illness, when I was battling the illness myself, I never thought that I would be able to talk to another person other than my family and a few of my friends that were supporting me, let alone recover and actually be here sharing my journey. Because during the first session, I shared my journey with everyone. So for today, we're going to actually go into more depth, okay, on the illness itself. We are going to talk about, how recovery is possible and how we're going to actually do that. And then also talk about how to manage your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with your loved ones, your families, employer, friends. How do you actually battle your illness, recover, and actually continue doing what you do? That means you are able to function at the same time, because we know when we're battling the illness, we really are not productive. So inshallah, that's our goal for today. And then also, if you at any point of time have any questions, we have our support team standing by with papers and a pen. So if you have any questions, you can write it down. We are also going to take a break at about 11:15. So I'm going to break. Before we take the break, I am going to get questions from you guys as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free. And also for today's session, please allow us to conduct the session in English because there are some that are here that are not able to speak Malay. Thank you very much. Okay, so first and foremost, what I'm going to do is we are going to recap a little bit of what we shared during the first program for the benefit of those that were not here, and of course, it's always good to do a little bit of revision, inshallah. When I was battling the illness 3 years ago, I felt really alone during the time, and it was not because I didn't have a support system. I had, it was really small, it was just my family and a few of my friends. But feeling alone, the reason for this is because during the time, I did not know of anyone else that was battling the illness. And I know many of you, when you struggle in the beginning, is always because of that. And for you to actually explain it to another person that doesn't understand, especially your spouse or your family, is really, really difficult, and that's always the challenge. And so, for me, in the beginning, that was the challenge, but then finally, I did not bother about people understanding or not, because at the end of the day, nobody can really help you. It's just you and Allah, and you battling the illness. Because I found what happened was the illness crippled me because I wasn't able to function, and also because not only I had the illness, tapi ada gangguan. So because of that fact, I allowed shaitan to win, and so I reached to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. So those of you who saw the video, you know that when you go through the illness, it's like an endless loop, and you really feel that there is no light at the end of the tunnel, but it is possible. You can recover, and this is what we would like to discuss, because today's message is a message of hope, and this is what, inshallah, 3 of us are here today to convey this message to each and every one of you, for the patient, for the person supporting the patient, and for those of you that are here just to learn and gain knowledge. Because like Ustaz always says, when we receive correct knowledge, and when Allah grants us understanding, a problem will seem smaller, and a problem might not seem as a problem anymore, inshallah. Okay, so there are so many people struggling with hardships, especially when we talk about mental illness, because mental illness is something that you can't see. So when you can't see what it is, it's hard for you to understand. You can't relate to it. You can't explain it. For example, if we talk about fear or we talk about anxiety, how do you explain, how do you describe it? It's different when we talk about physical illness or physical pain, because everyone, each and every person has felt pain, right? So even if I, were to talk to a person that has never, given birth, I can just tell them, giving birth, it feels like 50 times of menstrual pain, for example. And I can even explain it to a man, because I can tell the person that it's, 50 times of a migraine of pain, for example, right? So it's possible to give an approximate severity of the pain, but not when it comes to psychological illness, So the person looks really normal, the facade nampak macam biasa, like everyone else, tapi inside the person is just struggling. For me, during the time, it was bad. For me, it was just struggling to breathe. Not getting a panic attack, in the day would be such an accomplishment. So, that is how hard it is. It's extremely hard. Kadang-kadang, sometimes people supporting the patient, you feel that the patient is ngadu-ngadu, or you can't snap out of it. But really, there was an article in Dr. recently from in NST. They were talking about when we talk about mental illness, people perceive it so differently, because when a person has diabetes, you don't tell the person to snap out of it. But when a person has mental illness, you tell the person, why don't you just snap out of it? So this is what we want to do. We want to reduce the stigma. I was really ambitious during the first program, because I thought we could just eliminate the stigma once and for all, but really we can't. So inshallah, it's just gradually reducing the stigma, building the awareness, so in hopes that all of us that are battling mental illness will get more support and understanding from others, because this is really crucial and important, and this matter is really, really serious. Okay, so just to recap, in the first session, we spoke about what is the importance of a good mental health, what is mental illness all about. And then we also spoke about symptoms, causes, and triggers. And for me, it's very important to know what your causes and triggers are, because if you don't know what your causes and triggers are, when the illness reoccurs, I mentioned in the first program, I really don't like to use the word relapse because I feel relapse is such a negative word. But if the illness reoccurs, once you stabilize somewhat, it's really good when it reoccurs because then you know how to manage and control what you have. Because if not, you will always have that fear, what if today, it reoccurs? What if tomorrow reoccurs? And that's really, really hard. So when you stabilize somewhat, when it reoccurs, please, try and manage and control. We will, kind of guide and teach you how to do that, inshallah, today. Because this is very, very important to your journey to recovery, and also the power of istiqomah, actually. Because for me, in my opinion, if Allah would, were to heal me completely, then being a, human, our iman, it's always up and down. And so, there's always the possibility for me to forget Allah again. And so, when Allah gives you the illness once in a while, gives you the test once in a while, it's always good because then you continue to istiqomah. And we always need to remember that the test that Allah inflicts is not only for us, but it's for the people surrounding us, our family, the society as a whole. And I do humbly, in my opinion, I feel that we as a family, as a society, and as a ummah, we have failed because people continue to suffer in silence and people continue to suffer alone. And so, inshallah, we hope to be able to talk and discuss about that today, inshallah. And we also spoke about when a person goes through mental illness, what actually goes through, or what do we experience on a daily basis. Because I still remember this one time when, during my early days, I came to Qaisar. Really, I wasn't working because I couldn't function, but we had a camp and I really wanted to see what was going on. And so I came in, I went straight into the bookstore because, again, I couldn't talk to anyone. But unfortunately, during the time, there was this one parent in the bookstore, which coincidentally is also my friend. And, she started talking to me, and so I sat down. And in an instant, I felt that overwhelming fear, that overwhelming anxiety, and I was just holding on to the sofa, and I called my husband and said, you have to come right now. And he was just around, actually, but he dropped me off. And so this lady, not only was she talking to me, she was taking out brochures, she was asking me for suggestions, and you know how it is when you have mental illness, you really don't want people to be asking you questions, right? And so my husband called me in about 5 minutes, which felt like an eternity because I felt like I was going to lose it. And he said, I'm down here. I excused myself. I went downstairs into the car. I said, let's go. I rolled down my window, leaned my head against the window and started breathing. In 5 to 10 minutes, I felt okay. This illness is crazy. We're not crazy, the illness. This should be like in Fear Factor, man. It's that hard because, so we spoke about that. And then we also spoke about how when you have mental illness, sometimes it's not only the illness, but it's also gangguan. Because when our iman is down, it's easy for shaitan to come and whisper to you. And so in the beginning, that was my problem or challenge as well, because I couldn't differentiate between the illness and also the gangguan. Gangguan means like a disturbance or whispers from shaitan. So during your weakest, it's always easy for shaitan to come in. And I'm going through my journey to recovery was when I was able to differentiate and then slowly, recover or treat myself from it. And we also spoke about how, in order for you to recover, like for myself, was finding the fight in me or finding the willpower. And how I found the willpower was when I found the anger in me. I found the anger because I was so tired of the illness crippling me because I wasn't able to function. I was so tired of letting shaitan win because I allowed it to win. So that was why I constantly felt really scared. I couldn't do anything. Every single day, I would just eat, take a bath. Of course, on the prayer mat, just asking Allah, praying, making dua. That was all I did. I did nothing else. I didn't take care of the kids. I didn't take care of my house. I didn't talk to my husband. May Allah forgive me. So it was one of my darkest periods and the hardest thing that I've ever done in my entire life. But I want to tell you that it is possible to recover, and I am here all the way to help you and guide you together with Dr. Nazli and Ustaz Muhammad Noor, inshallah. So my first question to Ustaz is, Ustaz, as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inflicts us with, all these hardships, be it any kind of illnesses, calamities, is always for a reason. how do we, Ustaz, if you can tell us what is the hikmah behind the tests that Allah inflicts us with? And how do we gain a better opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not blame ourselves for everything that happens? Because, as patients, especially mental illness patients, we a lot of times blame ourselves. And I know you always, tell us, you have to forgive yourself. But how do you do this? If you can share with us, inshallah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa wala. First and foremost, thank you to Sister Anita, Qaisar Darussalam team, and respected Dr. Hazli, and our brothers and sisters in Islam, and our brothers and sisters in humanity. May peace and blessings be upon all of you. Can you hear me clearly at the back? Alhamdulillah. Crisp, hearing it? Sorry? Okay, Alhamdulillah. Brothers and sisters in Islam, one of the things that is currently leading the Western world to leave religion is partly in this issue called the problem of evil. Why is there suffering in this world? This is a big question. Now, before this, the Muslims especially, we did not have much problem with this issue. Why did I say that? There's one researcher from Britain, if I'm not mistaken, by the name of Montgomery Ward, who was trying to find the literature from the Islamic perspective and how to deal with the problem of evil. If God is all merciful, if God is compassionate, why is there suffering? Why is there suffering? So he tried to find the literature, anything that the Muslim scholars have said about it. And he concluded by saying, this has never been a problem among the Muslim world. That's why it's very difficult to find literature on this subject. It is only touch and go by the scholars. And why is that so? And he went on to explain why is that. Because there is one concept that is prevalent in the deen of Islam, the religion of Islam, that is not quite there in other philosophies, worldview, or ideologies of life. And that is the concept of, we know it already, the concept of test. That life is a test. Allah says in the Quran, تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. Praise be to God, He who owns the kingdom, وهو على كل شيء قدير, and He is all powerful over all things. He who created death and life in order to test you which one amongst you who is the best indeed. Now, if we were to look at the term test itself, it is actually a very, very positive word. To say that this life is a test. That means you will not be put in a situation of being tested unless the one who puts you to test knows that you are actually equipped to go through it. So the concept of test itself is a very, very positive concept. Okay? Test. You are not here to wander around, like Mr. Bean. Yeah? You remember Mr. Bean punya opening montage? No? There's a very important reflection of nihilism or meaninglessness. What's the opening montage of Mr. Bean? He falls out of nowhere and he is going nowhere. You see? He falls there and then he just goes, without any intention, without nothing, because to them, there is no purpose in life. We are just here out of nowhere. We do not know where we came from and where we are going. That's a very, very gloomy outlook of life. But Islam comes and says, no, you are a great creation of God. You are honored by Allah. You are equipped with all the things that you need. And that is why Allah tests you. Allah will not put someone who is not able to go through a test, to test him and call himself Ar-Rahman, and call himself the merciful, the compassionate. Right? So this concept of test is, please hold on strongly to it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tests us not only with pain and suffering. The worst of his tests are actually with good. He says in the Quran, Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. All of those who are alive will taste death. All of those who possess the self, nafs, will taste death. And then he said, and he will test you with the good and also with the bad as a fitna. What is the meaning of fitna? As a trial, as a tribulation, as a test from Allah. Wa ilayna turja'un, and you will be returned to us, to me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. What does it mean to be tested with good? How many times we see in our lives people come back to goodness, come back to God when they are actually tested with pain? And how many of us actually saw people who actually come back to God or improve their life because they are given $3 million, all of a sudden, or they are given wealth, they are given comfortable life. Many of us actually went astray due to luxury, due to ease. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns about it in the Quran. More than he didn't even speak about much about poverty or much suffering. He's talking about, you will go astray more often with ni'mah, with pleasure, instead of with pain. So he tests us with pain and also with pleasure. So, as many of us here, I believe, we are here tested with pain, not only with pain, but also with pleasure. And when we speak about pain, we are talking about inward pain also, and outward pain. There's this one doctor by the name of Dr. Paul Brand. He is an expert in treating lepers, or orang yang ada leprosy, people who are deprived of sense. Dia tak boleh rasa, tak boleh pegang. The title of his book that he wrote is The Gift of Pain. And he concluded by saying, one of the greatest things that God has created is actually pain itself. And not only physical pain, but inward psychological pain also. Why did he say that? Because he said, pain, this is one of the hikmah, this is one of the wisdom behind trials and tribulation, one of the greatest hikmah, is that pain is there not as your enemy, but as a scout to remind you of the enemy. Pain is there not as an enemy to you, but pain is there as a scout to remind you of the enemy. That means pain is there as an alarm system that something is not right that you need to correct. Something is not right that you need to correct. So he said, if people are born without pain, that's more dangerous. Pain is one of the greatest creatures of God, he said. So this is a good book that I suggest most of you to read. That's number one. Number two, as we all know, test or trial and tribulation is there in order for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to expiate us from our sins. Because some of these tests are actually, we can safely say, it is an invitation from our part. Some are given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to elevate us. Some are invitation from our own selves. What is that invitation? By maybe committing some sins that we do not realize. But I'm not saying all suffering because we invited it. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying some suffering, some pain came from our own invitation. I read an article in the Star by the Health. This is an article by the Health Ministry last year, 2016. Basically, they concluded three main factors that actually led to mental illness in Malaysia. Three things. Number one, he said, I forgot the name of this doctor. He's a minister. Number one is financial distress. Number two, unfulfilled expectations, or what we call as fantasy expectations dari Tuhan. And number three, pressure from your society. If we were to look at these three things, okay, this is from my small experience. Most people fall into financial distress, not all. Most people fall into financial distress because of their own doings. Okay? That means it is a form of invitation. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a test, that means it is a form of expiation, menghapus dosa. It's by putting yourself into debt, by shackling ourselves into unnecessary financial obligations. Okay? And number two is unfulfilled expectations. We do not know sometimes how to manage our expectations. Ibn Maskawayh, one of our great Muslim thinkers, He said that one of the causes of depression is at-tama'u fil muhal, is that you expect the impossible, expecting the impossible. So he concluded by saying that is the cause. So here is unfulfilled expectation. That means we invited it. Sometimes we invited it by our unfulfilled expectations. By expecting too much sometimes. Number 3 is social demands, society, from the society. What is the problem with this? The problem is sometimes we mix around with the wrong people, and we refuse to leave this circle sometimes. Okay. So one of the forms of the test is that it is an invitation for us, for Allah to expiate our sins. So that is the hikmah. Another one of the hikmah of ujian is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to show us the nature of dunya. That this dunya is unworthy for us to chase after. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes break our desires, He break our dreams in order to tell us, if you were to go after this world, this is what you will end up with. So I give you a taste of the lies of dunya, a taste of it, so that you will stop going after it. So this is one of the hikmah stated by our ulama. And another lesson I may share is also, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, test is a spoon of pleasure, which means it is through suffering, it is through pain that we really appreciate the blessings that we have. Betul tak? It is only when we become ill that we appreciate the blessings of health. And it is through sickness sometimes that the ni'mah that Allah has given us suddenly becomes heightened. Walaupun before this, it is always around us, we do not notice it. But the moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a certain amount of pain, suddenly all of these blessings that we see around us become heightened and become clear, become intensified. So that's why they say that it is a spoon of pain. It's a spoon of pleasure. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Then come to the second part. Sorry, I have not answered the second part. With regards to how do we have husnul zan with Allah, thinking good of God. With all these tests, how do we still maintain our good opinion of God? This is a very important question. We will never know for sure if we were to ask our heart, or maybe wait for some dreams to come in our sleep. Okay? But there's one thing that is very, very clear that no one can deny. One way to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to know and to understand His actions, is to understand His creations. Is to understand His ayat, His Quran, and also His creations. Look at the creation, look at the trees, look at the dunya. What you will see is ultimate justice and ultimate mercy. Even if you were to see phenomena like volcanic eruption, you see the earthquake, all of this happen to serve ultimate good. It is to balance the earth. That means small amount of pain, small amount of maybe calamities is there to serve ultimate good. So if you were to look at nature, if you were to look at the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not evil. He does not unnecessarily give suffering to creatures anyhow. Look at creation, you see that the predominant nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mercy and justice. That means we have not spent much time in observing nature. We need to observe nature. One of the books that I'm currently reading is called Nature Deficit Disorder. We have this deficit. Kita deficit from engagement with nature. We are deprived of touching the river, immersing ourselves in air terjun, touching the trees, smelling the forest. All this helps because it gets you in touch with God's creation directly. When you are in the middle of a city, you are in touch with human creation. You are in touch with laptops. You are in touch with walls. You are in touch with perpendicular lines, 90 degrees you see every time. You go to the forest, you don't see all this. You see fitrah. Your nature is closer to that. So it's one of the ways of healing is to understand nature, and through understanding nature you understand Allah, and you will know for sure that He will not just unnecessarily put someone in suffering without a higher purpose and without a higher good for that person. Allah.
My next question is from Dr. Ghazi. Dr. Ghazi, you shared before in our previous session about how the biggest chunk of those going through mental illness is anxiety disorder at 11%. We look at WHO near figures is depression. Also, the smallest percentage comes from schizo, which is 1%. If you can, sorry, share with us the numbers, person with mental illness to none, and also what is the number one mental problem. If you talk about anxiety disorder, which one specifically? Panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and then also. What is the causes? Is it hereditary? Is it due to a traumatic experience? Is it, a lot of people say it's a chemical imbalance in your brain. Or can you get mental illness just out of the blue? And what makes the illness reoccur as well? If you can share with us, inshallah.
Thank you for Ustad for having me here, and to all of you for coming and sharing. I'm always excited to come here because it's also a learning for myself also. Learn a lot from whatever for what Ustad have said just now. Okay, when we're talking about mental disorder, there are a lot. Macam orang cakap kan, gila ni 1001 benda. But we're talking about mental illness, that's very non-specific. Unfortunately, that's what the society believe. They lump everything under the category of mental disorder. But mental disorder varies. It's from mild to the severe one. And then when we're talking about anxiety disorder also is a group of, is a big group. Underneath that, there are other disorders. Okay. And then how we diagnose, we use DSM-5 or ICD is like a manual to list all the symptoms that this person has, and then they must affecting the function of the person. So that if the person have the symptoms, but the function is not affected, we are not going to give the diagnosis. But most of the time, the function has been affected. The function not necessarily the job, their student, their study, but also the interaction with their family members. Then, or if they're affected, so if the functionality has been impaired, and then the criteria has been fulfilled for that, and then the duration also is very important. So currently, the book that we use to diagnose is called DSM-5, the 5 edition already. And then you notice or not, from DSM-1 to DSM-5, the number of disorders getting increased. So it's true, if people said the world makes us more gila, because more and more disorders are coming and listed as one. And then people argue because is this a part of marketing, they want us to diagnose so that they can ask them to take medication so the pharmaceutical will make more money. Yeah, we can argue on that as well. But for the experience, for the clinical experience, it's true. People who have this mental illness, they really suffer. The pain sometimes is much more than the physical pain, which no one can notice. And then another difficulty is the person who suffered that, they also question the validity of their experience. They're not sure whether it's something that I should share with someone or not. Okay. Under anxiety disorder, there are other disorders. For example, panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, we call GAD, social anxiety disorder, social phobia, extreme shyness. That's one, social anxiety. Under anxiety disorder, we also have specific phobia. Last time, in DSM-5, under the anxiety disorder, we have another 2 categories, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. But now in DSM-5, OCD has been removed and become on its own as another category. And then the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, previously under anxiety disorder, now can stand on its own also. So, but now when we're talking about anxiety disorder, we are referring to these four major categories. One is a panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, and the last one is specific phobia. Under specific phobia means that person who have extreme fear towards specific reason. Some people phobia towards snake, lipas, leaf, phobia towards the height, phobia to be in the open space, agoraphobia, phobia being with, what if their phobia being performed in front of others? That is not specific phobia, it's a social phobia. Social phobia is someone who having difficulties or they have a very severe anxiety when they have to face others, when others can make some kind of judgment about their performance, not just about speaking in public. I have a patient, now is 21 years old, male, Malay, the middle child of 3 siblings. After SPM, he said to his mom, mak tak nak sambung belajar lagi. Decided not to continue the study because want to rest, tired after the SPM. And now after 4 years, still decided not going to continue to do anything. And then refused to see anyone because otherwise he's okay. He's eat well, and then dress up well, and then just he doesn't go out on his own. He doesn't have the confidence to buy the ticket of LRT. He afraid that if he do that, what if he didn't give the right change for the ticket? He feels so embarrassed. He feels that the face is going to change to red, and then people notice, and he cannot tahan that. That's the anxiety. And then the parents say, "Oh, my son is okay, just a bit shy." It's not, because he's no longer functioning. And then how are we going to do this? Okay, what are the causes for this, for example? So does this person has something that happened? Of course, true enough, during the school, he was bullied. Yes, but other people also been bullied. Yeah. And then true enough, he has a low self-confidence. Yeah. And then we can come up with a theory. Being the middle child, and then the brother is also performing very well, and then the youngest has been get all the attention, and he left alone. Of course, we can give that explanation, but for all psychiatric disorder, there is no one specific cause for causing the illness. It's a multifactorial. It's a combination of biological, psychological, social, and spiritual contribution. So for person to have anxiety disorder, for the person to have depression, for the person to have schizophrenia, they also have to have this. But of course, different disorders, the contribution of biological may be more than other disorders. The contribution of social may be more in certain disorders. So of course, all these factors will end up eventually will lead to the changes in the brain, because the brain is the final pathway before the symptoms of the disorder manifested. So it's true, there is a changes in the brain. What make the changes in the brain? There are so many factors for that. So that is the reason sometimes when people come to see me, then they say that, yeah, they rasa dia orang kena gangguan, kena something, kena sampuk, kena apa. Yes, in order for the whatever sampuk tu, gangguan tu to affect this person to have the mental illness, to have the symptoms or psychological symptoms, they must able to change the whatever, not necessarily the structure, but the function of the brain itself. At the molecular level. Because of that, when we do the structural imaging, we cannot see anything. And now we have functional MRI. So then we recently have given a grant by AADK to do this, for people who have addiction problem, addicted to heroin, they are in the AADK. AADK itu stand agency drug negara lah. So they have this client. So they give us money. So what we going to do? We're going to divide into several groups, and then these people who has been exposed with drug now clean. We're going to teach them certain behavioral and psychological intervention for 3 months, and then we're going to do the functional MRI to check the brain, the function of the brain, no longer structure. See the function whether they take up more color, or I mean we can see from the different colors of the image, and then we do the intervention, and then we repeat the functional MRI, whether whatever the intervention we do can change the function of the brain or not. So this is what has been done, obviously. For this is going to be the first time that we've been doing that we're going to do it in Malaysia. So it's interesting findings. So hopefully we can share the findings later. So meaning that we will surprise that whatever the behavior that we do can influence our brain. The medication that we take can influence our brain. So it's not just about the physical, the interaction that we have. The people around us will also influence our brain. It's amazing. These are all the new findings. Last time we thought the brain, once you got your brain, itulah you akan carry until you are old. But now it's no longer like that. When we start, we have this number of brain cells, but when we're getting older, the number may be still the same or less, but the branching, because the brain cell, they have the synapse, the synapse, they have like it's like a branch of a tree. Then some people, they have more branching out from the cell. Some people don't. And then what are the things that can promote growth of this? That may be the answer for the treatment for psychological issues later. All the studies, they are trying to go for this. And then the medication can help, the exercise can do, good food can, interacting with people can, do voluntary work can. So now we are going to get, the researcher going to get more evidence in terms of how can we promote the growth of the brain. So it gives us hope. Hopefully in future, we will discover more and more treatment that for us to do. Okay, so when the causes is not one, and then meaning that the treatment is not just one. Because of that, the modality of good management for any psychological condition need to be bio, psycho, social, spiritual. So because of that, ambil ubat saja, when you rely on medication, you are not going to be fully recovered. If you rely on the social only the family members provide the support, only the employer are concerned enough and very supportive without getting other mode of treatment or management, you're not going to be successful in the recovery. So it's not just one, it's need to be a combination, but not necessarily at the same time. We can have this one followed with this one, meaning that all need to be looked into, need to be explored, and need to be prescribed, to be given to this person, depending on what time that this person needs the most. Okay? So this is not just one person, it's always a combination work from a different facilities or different mode of treatment. I want to echo what Ustad said about the value of pain. What is the role of pain to make us realize how lucky we are to have that. It's true. It's true. How many of us, for people who have anxiety, the symptom of anxiety, the palpitation, the heart beating faster, we start to feel sweating and tremors, and then sometimes we start to have a headache, a generalized body pain. We feel like all the reflux, feeling sour in the taste. Your bowel, you want to lose power. You have all these symptoms which are non-specific, but it's real, and then it's disabling if you have it too much. And then for people who never had any physical problem before, it's a scary thing to have. And people who have panic disorder, for example, the panic attack that they have is exactly like having a heart attack. Exactly like a heart attack. Kena tekan, is very heavy, they are not able to breathe, they feel that they're going to die. People who have panic attack is like having heart attack so often. That's the reason every time they have an attack, what they will do? They will go to the hospital. They will ask their spouse to bring them to the hospital. And then what happened to them after that? They're afraid they're going to have another attack. Because of that, people who have panic attack, they afraid to be alone. If anything happens, they need someone can bring them to the nearest hospital. That's the reason they are no longer confident to drive alone. They ask the spouse to carry them, drive them everywhere. They're afraid to go to the mall alone. They need someone to accompany. Why? If they have the panic attack, someone can bring them from the place. Despite people try to reassure them, oh worry it's mall, ada orang tu, dalam mall tu kan ada klinik, pergi je. But they know from the spot they have to the clinic, who's going to bring them? What if they fell down and then who's going to? And then it's a very embarrassing if they have panic attack and fell down and people watch them. Because people who are anxious, they are very much aware and they don't like people give bad perception about them. Come back to the pages now. Our emotion, fear, is one of the emotions that God gives us. What are the emotions that we have? We have a lot of emotion. Primary emotion, secondary emotion, tertiary emotion. Meaning it's like painting. Primary colors, like colors. We have primary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors. When we add the colors, you get secondary. For emotion also like that. We have the primary emotion. What are the primary emotion? We have fear, sadness, anger, happy or joy, disgust, surprise, 6 that people normally quote as 6. Some people say 8. Out of these 6, only one is positive. And we consider as positive. And the 5 are all negative emotion. Siapa yang suka marah sini? Memang ada ramai yang marah kan? Or know someone who really who love to be upset. And that's some of you depressed because of that. But what happened after we feel angry? What will happen to us? Majority of us will feel bad. Some of us feel guilty for not able to control the anger. We feel no need someone to tell us that is because we ourselves know anger is bad. Because we were told as such. But if emotion is a bad thing, why God create this negative emotion? Why not create more positive emotion? The idea is simple because this negative emotion is the one who's going to guide us, give us warning, give us to do something about it. Because anger, there is a role of anger. There is a reason for us to be angry. So that we have to find out what are the reasons for us to be upset in the first place and try to do something about it. The problem with us, why we feel guilty after being upset, because how we express our anger, whether we express it in whether appropriately or not, whether we hit the dog, kick the cat, or we talk and express our anger. And then the problem is, how many of us are very comfortable expressing our emotion? Because we thought emotions supposed to be kept personally. It's a personal matter. You punya emosi, pandai-pandai lah you jaga emosi you. Why you have to share everything about your emotion to others? Because we don't know how to talk, describing our emotion. Because of that, our emotion expressed behaviorally, and then most of the time in a negative way, and then make us feel bad. We raise our voice, we say something meaningful, so that we make the other person upset again. So if we know the understanding of this emotion and try to find out, actually this is an alarm system to make us try to solve it or find a solution. So the symptoms actually is a way for us to remind us to find whether we can do some changes or not to get back to the right direction. So I hope I thank you.
Okay, we want to talk about stigma, because there's we all know there's so much stigma surrounding mental illness, and it's because of probably lack of knowledge, not much awareness being done on it, and of course it's also because of our Malay culture, Malaysian culture, like you mentioned just now, Dr. Aziz, whatever problems we have, we're not comfortable sharing it because we don't want people to know that there's something wrong with us. And then also, of course, the biggest stigma of all is when we talk about mental illness is always, if you have a mental problem, then you're crazy. So even society punya stigma itself, Dr. Azmi, because stigma within the society is like stigma against Muslims when we talk about terrorism, for example, because it's always easier as a society when we label a group of people that we don't understand, for example, being terrorists, in this case crazy depressed people with violent intentions or emotions, for example, and we don't take the initiative to actually understand. And also Malaysia being very developed Muslim majority country, for example, I think in my humble opinion we have failed to combine when we look at the problems in the light of Quran and Sunnah together with scientific advancements. So we're not able, or we have failed to, correct me if I'm wrong, to marry the two concepts, because we see, for example, I know Hazi and Ustaz, when we go to a hospital, we look at the corridors, the bulletin boards, we see a lot of, I would say, breastfeeding awareness. Even government hospitals, they have HIV support groups, they even have counseling divisions, the grieving divisions, but we don't see mental illness awareness campaigns, we don't see support groups, we don't see helplines when it comes to suicide cases. Doctors or psychiatrists, psychologists, when we see them, they don't tell us, okay, these are the, ayat-ayat shifa, these are, ayat-ayat ruqyah, you can do this, or even, powerful zikrs, or you can amalkan this dua. So we don't have that balance, but we are very knowledgeable, especially being in a Muslim majority country, and not necessarily just Islam, but any other religion, because we know one of the solutions is, of course, to go back to religion. So my question is, how do we reduce this stigma? I know we can't eliminate it completely because this stigma has been around forever, despite mental illness, not being a new illness. What are psychiatrists, hospitals, clinics doing about this? And we also spoke about the media. And also, Azli, you mentioned previously that the Malaysian media is not ready. Why is this? Because I feel that the media plays such an important role to promote this awareness. This problem is a serious problem. When a person battling this this disorder or illness, and when they can't take it anymore, they suffer in silence, they suffer alone, and at the end of the day, they take the matters in their own hands, and what do? They commit suicide. So this is a very sad, extremely sad situation, a very extremely serious situation, and it saddens me that the media doesn't pick up news like this, because this is something very urgent. It has been around for a long time. So what are we doing, and how we as the public, what can we do to help? Why don't we collaborate somehow? So because sometimes I also feel like the government turns a blind eye to it, and so many people are struggling. Not to be harsh, but you as a psychiatrist, and also my other question is, where do psychiatrists and psychologists, how do you meet? Where do you how do you work together? Because a lot of people come and see me and say, do I go and see a psychiatrist first, or do I go and see a psychologist? And the only reason why I tell them to go and see a psychiatrist is because I know psychologists, you're not able to prescribe medication, and like you mentioned before, you want to be able to give them the alternative solution of medication. And I personally am not a big fan of medication, because I do feel medication is necessary as a walking stick, but eventually you have to let go. So if you will share with us
Anyone who are here, I know some of you, I saw you in the clinic. Tell me, are you comfortable to step up now and then say, I have this and this? The answer is no, okay? But if you have diabetes, and then you say that, then can you step up and say have diabetes? Then some people still not comfortable. And then at first, I have cancer. No, we still, no, because all are illness. All are something that we don't want to share if possible. But the more difficult about psychiatric disorder, because it means to the sufferer means weakness. When there's something they're about themselves that they're not doing right, or they are not doing what they're supposed to do, which them develop the symptoms of psychiatric illness. Because people who are depressed, they say, and then the advice they got from the people around them, even though they are good, with a good intention, they always say, come on, you have to be stronger. Everyone's stressed, but you have to organize yourself. Go and jogging, you round the leg for 3-4 times. Go out, breathe. Maybe take holiday. Go to Langkawi somehow. You give all the suggestion. If you are stressed, yes, it will work wonderfully. You bring all the pinggan mangkuk from Langkawi, happy. But if you are depressed, you're no longer able to enjoy that, because one of the symptoms of depression is anhedonia, which is the loss the ability to feel pleasure. Then you feel even worse when you go there, because you spend so much. Someone you take MIASA, lagi mahal, and then you can't enjoy it. So that is the problem. The problem is there because you yourself question whether am I contributing to this problem or not, because everyone keeps saying that I should change the way I handle it now, without we realize they have done a lot so that they can, or they no longer have the symptoms. For someone who have depression, they gradually become more depressed, and then they try so many times. Yeah, so we cannot say that they are not trying, but they continue to have the symptoms because it's an illness and need more than just one simple solution. The problem with these physical, compared to physical symptoms, because the symptoms is that what we normally experience when we are well. For example, feeling low mood. When we are not having depression, sometimes we feeling low mood. For ladies, before period comes or during periods, you have low mood, you become slightly irritable, right? So how that symptoms compared to the symptoms when you are having depression? they are quite similar. How to differentiate between that? But if you have physical symptoms because of the cut, yes, it wasn't there before. Now I have it. You can, but if you having fear, what's the difference of fear now compared to the fear when you have anxiety? So because the symptoms are still the symptoms when you experience with you are not having the illness. The intensity, the severity much more, but the experience is still about the same. Make us confused. So how to differentiate between this? So that we still come back to, this is me, the one that I experienced. It must be something that I didn't do right. So, and then we start to try to find the causes why I have them. That is our nature to find the reason. But the problem is, as I said, the causes or the factors are multifactorial. Maybe we cannot find until at the end what the reason for us to become depressed or become having this anxiety. So the person who have it, they themselves already stigmatized. They call it internalized stigma. They themselves think they don't deserve to have this illness. So they don't come forward and try to help themselves. You could not lie because they don't think it's deserved to share, deserve to get treatment. And then if they're afraid, if they go and seek this treatment, everyone's going to label them as similar to other psychiatric conditions which are much severe. And then what are the severe ones? The one that we saw in the movies, in all the drama and everything, they put us schizophrenia, psychotic, taking drugs, yes. And then this, we have this mental image about psychiatric patients who are violent, unpredictable, and then anything they can change at any time. Which is, no, it's only very minority of the psychiatric patients who are not on treatment. When they are on treatment, they are just like us. In fact, they are better than us, some of them. So, again, is it because of not knowing, because of lack of awareness, lack of education? You will be surprised that some of the doctors from other specialties, they has been taught about this. They also not able to accept when one of their family members having depression. And then we also from the study show that if the families are more high achiever, it's even more difficult for the person, the one of the family members who depression, to come forward and share, because the family cannot accept. How come you cannot overcome your problem? We also stress. Kerja kita sama banyak dengan you. Really, why we are okay? You tak okay? Must be something wrong with you. Yeah, you are not you're not trying hard enough to try to overcome this. So that is and then our society, yes, we are moving. In fact, to say that we are still the same, no, not really. I think, for example, we have this event like this, so it's a way to reduce the stigma, to help us understand what this illness is about. The more we understand, the better we know, and then we able to help each other. I mean, for example, in 2015, because I'm part of the Malaysian Psychiatric Association, it's an NGO, the professional. In 2015, we have an event like this. We do the event like that regularly with the media. We want to highlight on the schizophrenia, penyakit yang psychotic thinking disorder too. This we want to highlight the number of patients. And then the character of that, the treatment available, now not just medication, we have the psychosocial program in terms of supported employment. Now we believe that giving this person's job is one of the treatment, is part of the treatment for patient who has schizophrenia. We call the media. We manage with the society, with one of the pharma company. We engage one of the media agency to call all the media, like we got about 30 media come, then we give a lectures given by psychiatrists, and then we give the media kit, go back and ensure that you spread the news about this. And in fact, tell them what to write. You know, there are a lot of media from the social media, and then, you know what happened? And I was one of the speakers. My topic is talking about the psychosocial, and in the talk I mentioned that they said that all the patients who come to see patients who are psychotic, have schizophrenia, come to hospital, we don't have to worry about dealing with psychospecial spiritual, because I told them jokingly, they all of them already went to see the spiritual person. Most of them went to see Arundin punya center. And then I said, oh, now what we should do is we have to work with these people. We should work with more. You know, what was the headlines? Not tomorrow, at night time. In one of the media, psychiatrists say we should work with more now. And then what happened after that? My Facebook, my kawan-kawan yang tak pernah kontak sama dia, dia cakap, oh sekarang ni boleh lah, dah makin kaya lah, dah work with more. Semuanya. And then, okay, society was upset because not just that part, and then they said all the lectures, the 3 lectures, the media making their own way. It's not their fault also, because they need to create sensation, how they run their business. Okay. And then we told the agency, you please do something to correct that. And then the agency, they come up with another press release, ask the editors to do something, make it. And then the next day, it came out and I said, oh, this is wrong. You know what happened after that? None of my friends messaged me or put in the Facebook when I put the new release about the news. We also love to read something that's sensational.
Sensational news.
Buatlah apa pun. What I'm trying to say is, it's not that we don't do. We do, but again, we probably have to find a different method. Even though with media, we know they have to run their business anyway. Because the editor, even though we have spoken to the journalist, the editor will edit according to what the company wants. So at the end of the day, but it shouldn't stop us from continue doing it. We will learn. And then, for example, this year, WHO first time select depression as the illness of choice. Every year, 7th of April, World Health Day. Bukan Mental Health Day, World Health Day. This year, depression. Because depression is going to be number 2, the most disabled condition after ischemic heart disease by the year 2020, according to WHO. Depression only, not the whole psychiatric disorder. Baru depression saja. Kalau kita campur sama, and then you ask, how much our national budget that give to health, and then from health, how much giving to mental health? Yes. Mental health is under public health. Public health, they have a communicable disease, non-communicable disease. Non-communicable disease is communicable dengue lah, malaria, apa tu, communicable disease. Non-communicable disease, diabetes, hypertension, mental health. Mental health have to share with so many other non-communicable disease. And mental health, mental illness tu, there are so many. Depression is so macam mana are we going to get the right that we deserve to get? How are we going to protect the patient that deserve the most? Balik-balik contoh saya cakap, bukan ni nak meluahkan perasaan sikit. Every year, bila hari raya, bila puasa, siapa yang dapat bantuan? Anak-anak yatim. Padahal patient who have mental illness, who schizophrenia, nobody care for them. Anak-anak yatim sampai dah tak tahu nak pakai baju color apa. Everyone gives so many to make a clothes.
that patient who has schizophrenia, the family, they don't have even one person who care enough to give. So we distribution about this because no one cares, because no one, someone who have it, but they don't want to be the champion. They are malu, because some of us prefer to say that our son or daughter have been spiritual influence, or sakit, sampo, sakit buatan orang daripada ada mental illness. So, one of the reason kenapa kalau dia cakap dia mental illness, dia takut, am I contributing or not as a parent? Am I, my parenting dulu ada masalah atau tidak? Ada tak keturunan sebab genetik from my family ke yang bagi dia ni? Because it come with guilt. If we can remove this, it's nothing to do with that entirely or solely. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Hazi. Itulah ethical reporting is very crucial. Tapi we see a lot, still many doing unethical reporting, unfortunately. Okay, we want to talk about those of us that suffer in silence and suffer alone. When we battle mental illness, some of us, we battle suicidal thoughts, we attempt suicide, and we also self-harm. My question is, when this happens, it's because when we go through or we battle the disorder, there's a point in our weakest iman period when we feel that we can't take it anymore. We're fully aware that Allah does not give us more than we can handle, but during the time, we really feel that we can't handle it. And of course, myself, I reached to that point as well. But the difference is, I think, alhamdulillah, I did not battle the suicidal part of it because I had the support, alhamdulillah. But I want, Ustaz, if you can explain, which are people battling this, how do we beat this? Because it's really, really hard to overcome, the suicidal thoughts, and when you self-harm. It's also because when you have psychological illness, Allah tarik the nikmat rasa, so basically you feel a lot of numbness, you don't feel anything, so you self-harm because you want to feel something, and so that's why people do it. So how do we beat this, Ustaz? And we know for sure if, when we commit suicide, definitely we go straight to Jahannam. And also a lot of people have really, how should I say, bad thoughts at the point, when people are suicidal, you really look down on people like that. So, can you tell us what really goes through, and is this, shaitan's involvement, or is it the illness itself, and how do you beat this? Inshallah.
I believe most of you here have heard the name of this psychologist by the name of Carl Jung, very well-known psychologist. We can consider him one of the founders of modern psychology. He began as an atheist. He began his career. He refused to acknowledge any forms of involvement of any out of this world causes to mental issues. Okay. But towards the end of his life, he has to surrender, because he is someone who is involved with this process called mediumship. Have you ever heard of this? Mediumship ni dalam bahasa Melayu called menurun. He attended many mediumship rituals. Not only him, Professor William James also, and Professor Hislop, and all of these people, towards the end of their lives, they have to acknowledge the fact that, as what doctor says, mental issues may be caused by other factors also. So that means we need to look at it from a holistic point of view: biological, psychological, social, and spiritual. And I'm happy to look at the trend of the science of psychology today. We can see that they are moving towards there. The terms holistic ni biasa pakai dalam tu, But 100 years ago, we can see that many of them like to reduce mental issues to only this or only that. Either it is biological, imbalance, either social, reduced to this only or to that only. But when we look at the tradition of the prophets, we can see that they have been saying from day one that we as human beings are a holistic creature of God. We need to tap on this. We need to tap on the power of religion. And one of the things that Carl Jung said is this. He said that most of the patients that I treated who have achieved recovery, none of them have done so without regaining back their worldview or outlook of religion. It means none of them, he said the word none. None of them have recovered fully without actually getting back their aqidah. Yes. So as Muslims and as religious people, I believe we are Asians here and we hold religious values strongly in our hearts. We need to tap on this. We need to look at religion again and tell ourselves that it is a source of remedy. It is one of the most powerful sources of remedy. I'm recently also reading a book entitled How God Changes Your Brain. Very important book. That means how the belief in God can change your brain. Yang tadi doktor kata this and that. This book is written by a neuroscientist. Andrew something, I forgot his name. But how God changes your brain. Now, it is connected to the, I want to speak something about the first question that you posed to me. Many of us have not come into terms with the fact that life in this world is a test from God. We know it, but we have not come into terms. It's different. They are two different things. Knowing it and coming into terms, meaning, okay, Allah, I surrender. That you have set a purpose of life for me. The issue is that we have set our purpose of life ourselves. We think that this is my journey in life, this is what I'm going to achieve, this is my career, this is my path. But if something happens in the middle, if there is a stumbling block, then we started to get disoriented. We need to come into terms that that goal has been set. Do we accept that fact? Have we come into terms with that Allah has set that goal for us already? As long as we want to fight this, then we will have an issue. We need to accept the fact that that goal has been set. And our life in this world is to go through this journey and to face the fact that that journey has been set. Are we willing to come into terms with that? Okay, all of us, not only those who are challenged, but all of us. There are outside people who claim to be healthy, but still are unable to come to terms with it. Say, this is my life. That is the problem also. And Bon Jovi problem. It's my life. Can any one of you here prove to me that the life that you have now is actually yours and owned by you? If you cannot give me any empirical evidence, at least give me a logical argument. How come that this life is given to us, we can claim that it is ours? That means we can direct it or maneuver it to wherever we want it to be. What right do we have to claim that it is our life? Do we create it? Or do we found it somewhere? Oh, terjumpa Ustaz, I found my life when I was walking under the bridge. You know, jumpa. Oh, someone gave me. Okay, that means it's mine. Can I see the contract? Can I see this, transfer of ownership? No. That means the life itself is not ours. But this term, your life, came, I believe, from the kufur of the Western civilization. We need to be aware of this. We need to be careful of this. I believe Dr. Hazli is very aware of this. Alhamdulillah, we can see the direction that he's going. I'm very happy to see that because I met some psychologists who refuse to acknowledge all these things. One of the person that you need to also get in touch with is also Dr. Malik Badri. He speaks about, I will come to the question, he speaks about the danger of mixing sometimes Western worldview of psychology and Islamic view of man. Because if you were to look at the basis of materialist psychology, for example, the very basis itself is anti-human. That human being is nothing but a biological creature. And there is no such thing as a soul. How many psychologists that you have met actually acknowledge the fact that we have a soul? One of them is, of course, kata asli, kita ada rohani. But how many psychologists or psychiatrists who refuse to accept the fact that there is such a thing as a psyche, so a spirit, sorry. You are the rohani, which is beyond your brain and beyond your body. Betul tak? The very foundation of this science itself need to be rechecked and re-examined. If we do not check on that, kita campur-campur, that's where we get conflation and confusion of ideas. Manusia ni apa sebenarnya? Where do we came from? And who are we? And where are we going? What's our purpose? Betul tak? Can only come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator. And the best come from the prophets. Now, coming to that question about Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, suicidal thoughts, and how do we go through it and how do we be patient? First and foremost, we need to understand that we are a ruhani creature first and foremost. Our real identity is that we are a spiritual being enclosed with this physique. Okay? So that ruh, that spirit, it is not our brain. There are three things we need to differentiate. The spirit, ruhani, which what makes ourselves as ourselves. Because if I ask you, where are you? You will point to? Where? You will point to? Where? Which part of your body? Kaki? This is where I am, sir. You will somehow point here. Okay? You don't point, oh, this is where. Ada tak orang kata? That means this is not your identity. You never found something, this is me. No, sir. We will point somewhere here, the center of us. I'm not saying that we are pointing to our roh, because the roh is not a physical entity that you can point at. But even when you point here, oh, you are dekat dalam jantung you lah. You are in your heart lah. No. I'm pointing to, what are you pointing at actually? That is the spirit thing. That is not bounded by any physical reality. That you-ness, that I-ness is not something physical. Okay? And that I-ness is not the brain, and that I-ness is not whispering from syaitan. These three things we need to differentiate. Ada aku, ada otak, dan ada syaitan. Sometimes we conflict these three. Kita campur aduk benda ni. Sometimes we think that this whispering comes from our own selves. And sometimes we think that the chemical imbalance in our brain is us. That's when we have a problem. How can we solve our own problem when we are the problem? Ustaz, you ask me to solve my own problem. I am the problem, Ustaz. It's me. No. Your chemical imbalance is not you. Your whispering is not you. You are not your brain. But Ustaz, how come when we meet into an accident, Ustaz, sometimes our brain damage, our memory loss also? That means our memory is in our brain, Ustaz. There's a big debate on this issue, right? Where is memory located? Where is the cell located? Our belief is that, I follow William James' mazhab, when he said that the brain's relationship with the ruh, with the spirit, is that it is there to transmit and to limit and to permit the expression of the soul. It is not the soul itself. Dia macam transmitter TV lah, macam TV. Okay? It takes in the signal, it gives out the image. But we cannot say that the image is the signal. No, the brain is like that. The brain is there to transmit the unfathomable soul. Okay? So, there's ruh, there's your brain, there's your friend called, there's our friend who always wants to be with us. But we do not want to be with him, which is the shaitan. We need to acknowledge this fact. Okay? Interesting fact that I discovered is that Carl Jung himself has a pendamping. And he said it clearly. Pendamping, you know what is pendamping? Spirit guide, which is a jinn. He said it clearly in his books. And he even named it called Philemon. And many of his theories that he came up with came from the whispering of this being. Don't be shocked. Many of the Western psychologists, they came from the Christian background. But because they are angry with Christianity, they try to go against Christianity 100%. But some of the things that they are going against are actually the truth. They cannot do that. So when they come to the end of their life, they have to acknowledge these facts. There are ada jin, ada hantu ni semua ni. Ada roh. There are spirits that is roaming around. They acknowledge that. You may be as atheist as you can, you may be as skeptical as you can, But these great minds of modern psychology have come to that conclusion. And even today, I can name you many well-known psychologists who have also arrived to that conclusion. Okay, so we need to take these 4 dimensions into account seriously. Don't take up the 4th one. Because kita takut kena, oh ni jumpa bomoh, Ustaz ni pun macam bomoh juga. Kan, baju hitam, bomoh ni. No, we have to differentiate between the real, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, religious therapy and bomohism. Okay, what we call as bomoh therapy. People need to know the difference. Okay, Islam is based soundly on knowledge. Okay, and structured thinking. If someone comes to you and say, oh, I think I nampak ada 40 jin with you, I see 40 spirits around you. You know, I can see your father is like this, your mother is like that. All these people, you leave them behind. A real Muslim healer will not do such a stupid thing. We will hold strongly to what doctor says, the 4 dimensions. Some people, they are not disturbed by the devil. Some are just purely psychological issue. Some, all these 4 things memang ada. Some only 2, some only 3. Some have none but acting only. Okay? One intention. Okay? So yes, this is a fact. Okay? So Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, the first thing towards dealing with this, to be patient, to go through all these ordeals, firstly, nak kena differentiate. Disassociate yourself. Know which one is you and which one is not you. Okay? This is very important. And number 2, we spoke about neuroplasticity, the last session. Neuroplasticity gives us hope that we are actually beyond our brain and we can actually change our brain. Not only our brains are the one that is influencing us, our actions, we, our mind and our role can actually influence our brain. This is neuroplasticity, connected also to how God changes your brain, authored by that neuroscientist. So this gives us hope. That means you're not shackled, you're not someone who is imprisoned in a prison that you cannot get out from. You have the key. Okay? And the next point that I want to share with all of you is Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad is Allahumma. Yes, there are so many people out there who have recovered. Please take this into account. Because there's many of us who, when we are tested by Allah, we will live to think that our problems are unique and no one else have went through the same thing. Betul tak? Ustaz tak faham saya, doktor tak faham saya, semua orang tak faham. No one understands us. But even we do not understand ourselves sometimes. We will say things like that. But please take into account that there are many people who maybe have faced worse scenarios than us who have recovered. Okay, one of the books that I suggested in the last session is a book written by Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz. It's called Jeffrey Schwartz. Just Google him. Most of his works are on these things. He treated OCD patients. He claimed. I don't know whether you have verified this or not. Have you verified that? Is it true? Yeah. He claimed that he have treated OCD patients through this therapy called mindfulness. Khusyuk. Dalam bahasa Arab, dalam Islam, we call it khusyuk. Mindfulness meaning you need to be mindful of your own thoughts. This is something that we have been taught since we were small, isn't it? As Muslims and as religious people, even as Christians too, I believe that you need to take care of your thoughts. You cannot just let it roam around and you become you be in an autopilot mode, they call it. Whenever there is a stimuli, there is a response from you. Orang buat you marah, someone comes, wants to make you angry, you become angry. That means you become a slave of your own mind. We are taught as Muslims, as religious people, to take care of the thoughts that we have in our brain and in our mind. Ini dipanggil muraqabatun nafs. In Islamic spirituality, we call it muraqabah. We need to be the third person. This is meta paradigm. I don't know if they call it something else. You have to you observe your own thought as if you become a third party to observe your own thought. Ni nak kena buat selalu. Thank you. Metacognitive. Thank you. Meta paradigm lah. Metacognitive. So, Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz says that by doing this mindfulness, often practicing it, being aware of your thought, and sometimes write it down. So you start, I'm thinking this right now. Okay, write it down. And observe that thought. Okay, he claimed to have cured many OCD patients. And when he done the MRI scan, there's a physical change in the brain itself by doing this mindfulness. And I believe we have that in our salat. Our salah is a powerful time for us to actually practice mindfulness or khusyuk. But mindfulness not for the sake of only treating ourselves, but to worship Allah. By worshipping Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help clear all these things. That means we have to put our target to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last point I want to share is, one of the ways for us to deal with this when it comes, okay, to be patient with these suicidal thoughts. I do not want to deal directly on the suicidal thoughts. It can come from shaitan, okay. Of course, it also can come from chemical imbalance. But I want to share how do we deal with it when it comes. This issue of hopelessness, rasa dah hopeless sangat, kita nak end everything. This is when I believe the concept of syukur comes into the picture. Syukur. Now, everyone will say, Allah, syukur. Everyone knows. You know, every time we finish prayer, we say Alhamdulillah. Start 33 times. We say thank you Allah. You know what's when must we do syukur? When is the right time to do syukur? Huh? Sorry? All the time, of course, but the best time and the most important moment when you wake up in the morning, no. When you are making sujood, no. Not yet. When you are in ni'mah itself, when you are given pleasure by Allah, when you are given blessings, on that time you have to. What is syukur actually? Syukur is to be conscious of the ni'mah. See, another point about consciousness. You need to be conscious. Wait, Ustaz. I am actually receiving much blessing now. MashaAllah. Look at my child, he's healthy. Look at my wife, he's round. Look, I have a good house. Write it down. This is syukur. And say it to your wife, for example, your husband. Ya Allah kasih macam-macam kat kita. Say it. We don't do this. We say that syukur is like sing Raihan song, syukur Alhamdulillah. Oh, we just say Alhamdulillah, Ustaz. Cukup tak? Alhamdulillah Ustaz. Nampak sangat tak cukup tu. Syukur kan? Syukur is be aware. Now, like now. Are you aware of the blessings that you have now? Do you want to repeat it often? This is what Imam Abu Zaid al-Balakhi, one of our psychologists who lived 100 years ago, he said how important it is to store in positive thoughts, so that when negative thoughts come in, you can withdraw that positive thoughts to encounter these negative thoughts. In modern terms, they call it emotional bank account. You need to actually deposit positive, experiences, so that when negative experience come, you withdraw duit untuk pay for it. You see? But the problem is our emotional bank account sometimes kurang atau deficit. How many times you say, Masya Allah, what are the things that you can be happy of in your life? What? 10 seconds of gap? You need 10 seconds of gap to actually keluarkan the blessings. That means we have not done it. We have not actually practiced syukur properly. Someone who practice syukur properly, syukur is gratitude, to be grateful, to be conscious of the blessing. Conscious lain dengan tahu, consciously aware. Now we understand a blessing, Ustaz ni. Not many people get this opportunity, Ustaz. Alhamdulillah, Ya Allah. I love to meet old people, sometimes they speak like that. Right? Ya Allah, nikmat Allah kasih, Ya Allah, Ustaz. You can cry when you do that. And when you look at their state, nikmat apa tu? Nikmat lah, nikmat hidup, dah segar. Ya Allah, kat kampung ni kan. Allah. I say, how come I don't see all this? Am I blind inwardly? Something is not right in my heart. I should make istighfar. I'm not blaming everyone because of that kita jadi macam gitu, tidak. But this is my personal reflection. So syukur is to be conscious. Sebutlah. Say it to your child. How many times you say to your child? You dapat gula-gula ni, dapat lollipop ni, untungnya kan. Abang dapat saya, untungnya kan. Itu action lah. Masya Allah, I got a very handsome husband. Ya Allah, thank you lah, Ya Allah. Be aware, so that when the challenging time comes, you are very rich. You punya bank account banyak boleh keluar, so you tak worry sangat. You can fall back on that. But say thank you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can you say thank you Allah? Thank you Allah. Maybe that's for your heart. Thank you Allah for this existence, that you created me. This life is beautiful actually. Deep in our hearts we know that life is beautiful, isn't it? Even though sometimes we do not experience it. we get a glimpse of it. But life is actually beautiful. We know it, and thank you for this experience and this opportunity. Say that and mention these blessings. Allah says in Surah Al-Duha, فَبِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. That is the end of Surah Al-Duha, right? For Muhammad and the blessings of God, mention it. But don't go around boasting. You say it to your family to remind each other. I love when I watch Western movies. When they are in their dinner table, if they are Christians, they will say, that is a sunnah of Rasulullah. That's how our Prophet do also. That's how Prophet Jesus, in my view, in our view, does as well. They say blessing. Before they eat, they are trying to tell each other, see, we have food. Where does it come from? Came from Him. Thank you. Thank you. How many times we do that? We read dua also, sometimes we don't understand. Allahumma barik lana fima razaqtana wa qina azabannar. Barik lana apa? Fima razaqtana wa qina azabannar. That means we become we take recordings. We are not conscious of. How can we be shukr if we are not sure what we are talking about? Be conscious. Even if you do not understand the Arabic, just say in Malay. Just say in Malay. Ya Allah, terima kasih atas makanan ini. You are not following the Christians, because the Christians are following the Prophet also. They are following Jesus. We will not have a problem following Jesus. We love Him. Right? So if we praise God in their food, we praise God in their food. When we praise our food. And not only food, our children receive a good result in their examination. We see our wife coming back home smiling. We come back home and then we hear our wife reciting Quran. You know, let's just one story last. You know Datuk Jalaluddin Hassan?
Yes.
Recently his wife passed away, isn't it? And he was very affected by it. Very, very affected by it. What he says is that, Muhammad, my wife used to wake up every 4 a.m. in the morning and pray. And I used to come back home 3 a.m. after shooting, and we asked my wife, why are you doing it? You know, you're tiring yourself. You know. And what did the wife say? You know, Abang, when you are acting, sometimes you are forced to do things that is not permissible in Islam. You touch women, you hug women. So here I am praying for you. What is wrong for me to wake up 4 a.m. in the morning to pray for you that Allah expiate your sins? So one of the things that Datuk Jalaluddin Hassan says is that you appreciate your wife. How many times we do not appreciate the blessing that we have until it is lost? So don't wait for that to happen. Say thank you. Come and say thank you, Allah give me you. Thank you, Ya Allah, thank you. And cry. Thank you is so overwhelming. The default state of reality is good. Do you agree with me? The overwhelming state of reality is good. Your mind will say yes to that, but sometimes your heart will lawan. The default state of reality is overwhelming good. Do you agree? Bad is just a crack from that good. Betul tak? Look around you, be good. Botol ni tak bocor, good. The color is green, okay. The mic is working, good. I'm sitting, mashallah, comfortable sofa. Right. Dr. Azli is playing with his pen, you know. The gravity is working, that means. Right? Everyone is ready. Good, good. Can you list down all the good? Impossible. But can you list down bad? Okay. The list will be exhaustive. But good is too overwhelming. That is partly the problem. It's like a fish swimming in the sea. The fish will not see the water. Betul tak? Unless you take out the fish and say, see, you've been swimming in the water. Oh, there's water. Yeah. Unless when Allah take us out from blessings, then we will see. Oh Allah, Ustaz, I have been surrounded by ni'mah. How rude I am to Allah to only look at the bad. Okay. So please penuhkan the emotional positive bank account, please, by saying syukur and be conscious of the blessings that Allah SWT give. It will help us, insyaAllah, when trying times come, insyaAllah.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much, Ustaz. Before we take, we're actually short on time, but we're going to take our break after the questions. Question I have is how to advise those patients who have lost their faith in God, but I think you pretty much covered that. Do you want to add anything? Okay. And the next question is,
maybe I want to touch just one point. Okay. How do we help those who have lost faith in God? Yes, I know of a person who has been tested by Allah and refused to talk about God at all. Refused to even consider Allah is merciful. So how can he be merciful? You took my wife, you took my children, they came into an accident, and everyone was taken by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't quote them from any Muslim scholars, because they nearly have lost faith in religion itself. Take from the Western scholars. Take from those who were atheists before and became religious later, who realized their mistakes. Okay? Don't quote from the stars, don't quote from a bomo, of course, don't quote from any alim or Quran or hadith. They wouldn't want to hear it anymore. Our mistake is that we show it. No, Allah says Allah loves you, Allah loves you. That person has closed his heart already. Don't do that. Quote from someone that he trusts. So that, and who does these people trust? They are scholars. These two, there is always battling the modern Western civilization and Islam. We cannot refuse, we cannot deny this fact. There is a conflict that is going on because our worldview are nearly totally different. Okay, so do not quote from the Muslim, but quote from those people who have converted. Their worldview have changed. That's my suggestion.
Ustaz and Doctor, what would be your general advice on how to deal or manage someone in your family who has been diagnosed with bipolar?
A bit background on bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder, meaning that having problems in regulating his or her mood. But of course, even though the mood is affecting the thinking also, and then affect the behavior. So what are the symptoms the patient who have bipolar normally presented with? Nama pun bipolar kan dia ada dua pola. Pola satu, dan one pole is manic or hypomanic. That's when this person has been in the up phase. Another one is in the low phase, depressive phase. During the depressive phase, they experience similar like someone who have depression. Low mood, cannot sleep, lost interest in life, hopelessness, worthlessness, low energy, can't concentrate, affecting the function. The duration of this one, minimum is 2 weeks. So what are the symptoms when this person have in the manic phase? Manic phase is like someone who are on drugs, on stimulants. They talk fast, talking a lot, and then they are very energetic, very positive, elated mood, happy. They make jokes, everyone loves about them. And then they have a lot of activities. They do a lot of things that make them feel good. They're having the pleasurable, they're driving very fast, they give donation, they're investing in business because they have a lot of idea. We call it flights of idea. So this person is like, or someone is a businessman who have a lot of idea. Then when they become severe, they have this, we call it grandiose delusion, when they believe that they are rich, related to many rich people or influential people. They are related to, of course, our Najib and Rosmah, and then they always believe that they are going to get a lot of money to start a project. And then some of them maybe, oh, this is the money they have to go to Syria to solve all this conflict. So that's the manic. But sometimes they have, we call it hypomanic. Not so bad. It's maybe the milder form of the manic. They don't have to be at the same time, this work. They can have this manic first, and then they are okay, and then they have depression first, and then. So it's like when their life, most of the time, is like riding a roller coaster. But for us who be with them, it's not an enjoyable ride. To them maybe, because they have no insight, then they will feel that everyone cannot understand. I have so much idea that I want to do, why everyone do not support me? They did not realize that the family members have supported so many times in the past, because they are looks like just someone who have lots of ideas. The first time maybe we believe them, and later because of so many happen until they're involved in so many that, and then so many financial crisis before, and then the family having difficulties. So, of course, this is an illness. It's not just a behavior, personality, character, and they need to be to get a proper treatment. So proper treatment first. Who should this person see? Just answering what Puan Anita said, we have a counselor, we have a psychologist, we have clinical psychologist, we have a psychiatrist. Who should we go first? Of course, if it's depend on the problems, because sometimes we don't have a psychiatric problem, we just have a crisis, marital crisis, crisis with the kids. So that one, maybe need to go to, better go to see a counselor or psychologist. Psychologists, there are two psychologists. One is clinical psychologist, another one is a psychologist, general psychologist. The clinical psychologist is the one who can give treatment because they have they took masters extra exposure to the clinical problem. Psychiatrist is a doctor who specializes in psychological problems. So psychiatrist is more for the negative psychological development, whereas psychology is the positive, how to make you a better person, basically. And then the psychologists usually work in sports, in corporate, in they how to understand the human being, the developmental of a human being. Clinical psychologists, they are a combination of this. So we need to get the expert right. So, but for bipolar, please go and bring to doctors first, then doctor refer to psychiatrist, because the first thing we need to do is to rule out the medical condition that can mimic or can make the similar presentation like manic symptoms. We have to rule out to do the urine test or to ensure that this patient not on drugs. Most of them on drug also. Even they're on drug, they could have bipolar also. But if they only have the symptoms when they are on drugs, maybe we think it's a drug. But most of the time, the patient, they have both. They have bipolar with and also taking drugs. And then they could have like thyroid problems, maybe there is some changes in the brain. So we have to rule out the medical causes first before we say this is a bipolar. Bipolar is actually a diagnosis by rule out other possibility. So and then we have to what the acute phase. Yes, we have to maybe need admission first. Masuk ward. Masuk ward is like, trust me, it's not easy for us to admit the patient into the ward. Susah. Sebabnya, if possible, we don't want to, because we know it's going to disrupt whatever the relationship, whatever that we're going to build with this person, because they're going to hate us for the rest of their life for bring them into the ward. I don't want that. So that is the second or third option that we have. If possible, if the family are willing, we also want them to be treated at home. If we can go and visit at home, we can. Most of the hospital, we have a community team. They can go and visit within certain duration from a certain length from the hospital. And then during that time, this is where the medication is important to settle them down. After that, we have to think what are the things that most of the damage control. This first is damage control, minimize it, make sure that it doesn't cause any more disruption to the other, and then keep it in the ward first, and then give treatment. Most of the time, by 3 weeks, they are settled. Sometimes 2 weeks, we already discharged already. And if we need to do it fast, like if the patient is, for example, pregnant, or this student, they need to go for the exam, we have to do it more active intervention. If we can wait, normally we wait. Most of the time, if the patient who have bipolar, if they come to see us for the first time, and then they are acutely manic, we treat them, and then we always ask the family members, if they are a student, we ask them to defer the course first, because it's going to be stressful for them to think about it. If they are work, we try working, we try to do it fast so that we don't want the employer to be suspicious and then say they are not functioning. So it really depends on as a family members, how we can do. First, we know that you have to do to acknowledge this is an illness. Second, that is not this person's fault. It's not your fault also for this person to develop this illness. Nothing that you have done, even though you think that you contribute, no. this person is developed this illness because of the combination of that. How can we be more supportive? We, yes, understand the illness, talk to the doctor, and then asking what you can contribute. Maybe at the first time you don't have to get involved too much, because one of the contributing factors for relapse, as Anita said, get the illness is if the family are over involved. Some of the family, mother after the illness, they take the early retirement and want to spend to look after the, maybe that's not the best, because the patient feel, you know, maybe that is the reason, one of the reasons for this person to develop is the mother herself. He says high pressure on the son, and then expect the son to be perfect. And then the mother, of course, did not realize that. And then most of the time they're going to do everything for the sake of, maybe doing too much is not the best time at that time. So because of that, when they are admitted to the ward or getting to the, we always have a family meeting. Family meeting before we allow the patient to go home. We have a family meetings. We educate again. We tell them what are the illness is all about, what the expectation. Of course, different hospitals have a different depend on the workload they have. But we try. It's the right of the family and the patient to know what is all about, and then how can they contribute. And then during the maintenance phase, whether the medication is needed or not, what other things that we have to do, whether they need some form of psychotherapy or not. And then the most important thing, ensure or maintaining whatever the functional job that this person has. And then if possible, we will give whatever letters to support to them, so that the employer won't terminate them. So that is the thing that part of the treatment. So meaning what I'm trying to say is, the idea is we have to work together between all the involved, and then the families can contribute. But most of the time, sayangnya, because we came late and the family only burn out, and then they don't feel like want to help anymore. Especially happen to the sibling. The parents are the only one who will fight for their kids. Other siblings, they are easily give up. So most of the time, this is the complication of not get the treatment early. We don't realize that. So if possible, like any other physical illness, is get the patient get the treatment as early as possible to prevent the complication. So that's what I want to say.
Okay, I just want to ask you just a follow-up on the question is, I know you keep repeating when you say when you have the illness, don't lose your job, try and keep the job that you have, but that's the challenge right there, is when you have the illness, how do you perform your job? You basically you can't even function. So,
Yeah.
So can you just explain, because I don't get it.
Okay, if you ride a motorbike and then you fracture your leg, what happened to you? You went to the hospital, get it fixed, then how many MC, how long the MC that they give to you? About 8 weeks. And then during the 8 weeks, what this person do? Have a rest, go to physio. So if this person have depression, a broken heart, broken soul, so what they do? They continue working, because we cannot see where the broken pieces are.
Right.
Okay, so but they deserve the same MC as someone who broke the leg. So the problem is the person who have depression, they don't see they deserve to have the MC. Because they're afraid, nanti saya tak pergi kerja, kesian dekat my colleague tu, nanti dia kena ambil my kerja. Because they think they don't want to, and then they're afraid that if they go to work, macam mana nanti orang akan cakap dia ni kenapa dia tak pergi kerja. So that, in order for us to, then we tell them, this person not able to perform their best at this time, and then deserve to be off from work. It's their right to have this sick role. And then after get a proper treatment, they will go back to work. It's like you treat any other physical condition. Why can't this person have the same right? The problem is, most of the employer is even the government, they cannot see it. If there's someone who got the MC and then is see the psychiatric, this one is we are not so sure about this patient anymore. This must be unpredictable. Nanti kalau dia mengamuk macam mana? Susah juga. And then nak mengamuk, orang yang patah kaki pun boleh mengamuk. And And then what next is the stigma and discrimination. This is something that we need to fight together. And then we need to fight to make insurance for these people who have a mental illness. So I think that is what we should fight for this is the advocacy work that we should do, everyone should do, especially the patient who already recovered, to fight for their right. And then some of us, macam mana ni, I know some of you are here, yang sepatutnya dah nak pergi kerja sangat-sangat, ada kesian dah dekat kawan-kawan yang bos buat kerja kita. But you are not well yet. And then why you think that you need to go to work? If you are well, I tell you you're well. Why you don't even trust me that I said that you're not well? Macam mana?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Haziq. Okay, we're going to take a 5 minutes break so you guys can rest, or you want to go to the toilet, or you want to eat. We're going to come back and talk about how recovery is possible and what we need to do to recover. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. So I'm just going to do one more question and then we'll continue. Okay, the question is, I acknowledge that I am sick and I seek treatment for my mental illness. How can I convince myself that I can return to society or get along with other people, as I believe I shouldn't get married, as not to victimize other people around me? After all, nasab is also a criteria in choosing a spouse. So she's worried that, if she gets married, then she will victimize the people surrounding her, or her spouse, in this case, if she gets married.
So mental illness, like any other illness, should not prohibit us from living like normal life. The person who have bipolar, depression, anxiety disorder, or anything, they should work, they should have a family, they should run their life like any other illness. What they need to do is to get the illness treated. That's all. Just like you get your diabetic under control, and then you juggle your diet. So that's about the same thing. You get your illness treated, and you juggle your stress level. So then you can do whatever you want to do. There is no restriction on getting married. You're not going to kill another person, provided that you get a proper treatment.
Okay, Dr. Haziq and Ustaz, this question is for both of you. A lot of people ask me about my recovery. Have I fully recovered? What's the percent like, etc., etc. And honestly, I don't know how to answer that question because how would I know? Am I the same person that I was before? Of course not. Am I a better person? I would like to think so. Do I want to be like I was before? No, not if it's the same package, no. So my question is, what does recovery mean in psychiatric terms? Less than 30 words, and Ustaz as well. What does recovery mean when it comes to mental illness? Your opinion on this? Less than 30 words as well.
Recovery means to live with the illness, and then in fact embrace it, maybe celebrate it if possible. So patients who I have a lot of patients who have panic disorder or anxiety disorder, and then they ask, can I be like myself before? And then they don't want to be like themselves before because they are in a better position. I have a patient who have a panic disorder, because remember, panic disorder or any other anxiety, they have the physical illness, and then after having the illness, they remind themselves to look after themselves. Some of them lose weight, started to look after their diet, and they don't realize that this is a good thing. Because as a human, we don't realize until we are being forced to do something to change the way we run our life. And then after having the panic disorder, have a panic attack, they stop smoking. After has been told to do so many times. And then don't you think that's a good thing? No, because they're afraid. What if I get back the panic attack? What if the panic attack come again? I'm not going to be the same person as before. But right now, do you have that? No. And then, but what if in the future? That is the concept of mindfulness come back, being in present. Right now, do you have that? No. So why you worry about? I worry about what if I had the panic attack tomorrow? Worry tomorrow lah. Why you worry now? Okay. The idea is our brain is always make us prepare for that something so that we get ready. That is the price that we have to pay for to be ready to be in control. How many of I didn't hear anything like someone coughing or something like that. Do we aware that we breathe right now? Our heart are doing the work now. We are not aware because all the things are automatic.
Right.
We only started to realize that when we have sinusitis, we have flu, we have coughing. So, when despite that, we don't normally change the way we live. Sometimes the reason we have the illness is to remind us to change the way we live. Then we change. Some of us become nearer to God, some of us look after our health, and then that is another reason why we are being tested to change. Embrace it, and then take it as a positive thing. Positive thinking again come into place. So that's and then are you recovered? Yes, you are recovering. Recover is a journey, not a destination. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? No, you don't ask that whether you are recovered or not. You are recovering because you are in the process of getting better. And even though you are not there, if the reason is we always think that recovery is a place that we want to go. No, you are having it now. And then we never question you are recovered or not. You are recovering.
Thank you very much. Ustaz?
Recovery to Bismillah. Bismillah.
Ustaz pakai mic dulu.
Number one, when we have actually regained and accepted the correct meaning in life. That is number one. We have come into terms with the purpose of why we are here. Okay. Number two, when we already have the ability to have personal zone or good opinion of God. Okay, God, I know this is painful. I know you are testing me, but I know the ultimate purpose of all this is good. Okay, number two. And number three, I believe is sorry, what the point? Yes, when we are able to avoid the big harams and we are able to perform our basic responsibility. Don't go for too much. Just basics haram you avoid and perform your basic responsibility. That is, alhamdulillah, in my point of view, is recovery.
Thank you very much, Ustaz. Alhamdulillah. Okay, since people are already suffering alone, many suffer alone and in silence, what would be the first step to their recovery? Dia dah suffer alone, dah memang seorang-seorang in silence. So how do they help themselves to recover? What would be the first step, the important step?
That is the theme for this year Mental Health Day. Talk. Let's talk. So choose someone that you can trust and talk to the person. So that's the first step, because it's very hard for us to do that. So that's the first thing. Someone who you can trust. If you don't have that someone, that could be the problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hasbi. Okay, how can a person that does not understand the illness help the patient? Because in most cases, obviously, the person helping the patient does not understand because they don't go through it. There are cases as well, as we've seen during the first session where the husband has depression and the wife has anxiety disorder. So that's I think not it's a little bit rare. But what if you don't understand the illness? So how do you fully support the person, which in this case a lot of time is your spouse or even your children? Because again, we haven't talked about this, but how is mental disorder different in children versus in adults? Because today we see a lot of kids, even kids having anxiety disorder, a lot of teenagers going through depression, bipolar. So, Dr. Hazi, if we can address both the questions. Thank you.
Okay, how to help? So when someone who need help, the first thing they need to do is talk. The one who want to help is first thing they need to do is listen. If they talk also, who's going to listen? So that's the problem. The problem is too many people want to talk, want to give advice, even though they do not really understand what really happened to this person. So the first thing you need to do is listen. Second, this person who have this, they are ambivalent. They are bertangguh-tangguh, procrastinate, want to do the thing that they're supposed to do. So in that position, maybe we have to do that together with them. For example, our advice to get help. We keep giving the advice, and then they also know we give, tapi they never really actually doing it. So maybe we need to take the initiative of that with their permission. Okay, this is the kind of support that we have to do. So and then together with this person, we get to the right person, and then we understand together, and then support. Support in the sense that be there. Maybe no need to say anything. The problem with us, we are very uncomfortable with silence. So we have to do something to, no, just be there. And then you just tell, I'm here, you know where I am, I'm here. You can talk, you not do anything, I'm just here. So that is what the support, the thing that this person can do. Children and adult, yeah, the presentations are different because we know the children depend on their age, their cognitive, the higher functioning maybe not matured enough yet, and then they have the disadvantage of using the language to describe what they experience. So most of the time we can see from their behavior, the way previously they like to play, they no longer play, and then they have become more withdrawn, and then we can see from their performance, the school performance, the teachers start to complain, and then they react from the behavior. They don't really say it out loud. So again, we sometimes we also don't want to be too conscious of it. But if there is like one source already say something or complain, and then we need to get it checked. So I think of course if the children is big enough to then quietly, and then we have to talk, and then we give them a place to explain things. I think they don't underestimate the capability to discuss their issues.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zee. I just want to go straight into medication. Okay, we spoke about meds, my views on meds. So, is medication necessary? I know you say, really different mental illnesses, different medication and all that, but for example, we spoke about bipolar. You need the medication to kind of regulate your moods and all that. So in certain cases, medication is necessary, and also for me, I think medication is really compulsory when we talk about going through an anxiety attack or panic attack, because you immediately need to, slow down the heartbeat, etc., etc. So, what is your views on medication? Is medication really necessary, a must in order for a patient to recover? Okay, and when a person is on medication, you become very dependent on the medication. So, how do you disengage yourself from the medication?
There are rules of medication, yes. Medications work, yes. Medication have side effect, yes. Do we need medication? Yes. But really depend on what disorder that we're talking about, the severity of the symptoms. For example, the anxiety symptoms, panic attack, panic disorder, maybe depend on the severity. If a generalized anxiety disorder, normally the psychotherapy may work better first. If the severe enough need medication, the problem is we came too late. We always delaying in getting the treatment. If we can come when the symptoms started to appear, maybe we don't need medication. But the problem is we come when the things getting complicated, where the medication need to be there and then follow up with psychotherapy. So the combination always works better, but the problem is, do we have the accessibility to that? And then when we do, yeah, please. And then later on, in the process of recovery, the medication alone never enough. So are we going to be dependent on medication? Depend what type of medication. When we're talking about psychiatric medication, it's not that many. We have We call it benzodiazepine is considered as a anxiolytic. Anxiolytic ubat penenang. Dan kita ada ubat antidepressant. Jadi ubat antidepressant ni dia guna untuk depression and also for anxiety. That sometimes we are confusing. The doctor give antidepressant, you Google this one antidepressant, but I'm not depressed. I have anxiety. Yes, and nama je antidepressant, but can be used for anxiety as well. And then we have ubat antipsychotic. Antipsychotic ni untuk what psychotic means. Psychotic is a condition where the person having hallucination and delusion. This person not able to tell the reality or not real. Dia dengar suara tapi dia tak ada suara pun. Dia dengar dia punya own experience. They have in their own world. People who take drugs can have psychotic. People who have schizophrenia can have psychosis. So the treatment for this, bipolar also can have psychosis, like when they have the grandiose delusion and believe that they are from the royal family, things like that. So antipsychotic is needed for kind of cases. Kalau macam itu, without antipsychotic ubat, dia memang tak jalan. Baca lah, apa pun memang tak jalan. But kalau it's anxiety, yes, you can do something about it to calm yourself down without taking the benzodiazepine. But during the time when the severity is very high, you probably need a bit of medication first. So that is the importance of getting the proper assessment by the person who can do that for you, and then discuss. Tak faham, tanya. Is your right to know what you're supposed to get. Don't just simply accept. But don't be so defensive also, because most of the doctors not really want to do unnecessarily, because they always have to balance out between. We know nobody likes to take medicine. We know that. So, but the idea is, if the medication is necessary, that is what we need to do. Only anxiolytic and hypnotic can lead to dependence. Antidepressant, antipsychotic cannot. Why I say that? Because only anxiolytic and hypnotic, when you continue taking, the dose is going to be increased until macam kita ambil all the drugs lah. Tapi ubat antidepressant, antipsychotic, the dose will be maintained or increase a little bit only, even though you take for years. So that one is not causing dependence. Cuma kita takut bila kita stop nanti rasa macam yes. Bila kita stop taking medication abruptly, of course we're going to have some symptoms. That means our body is very clever. They know when the medication is not there, when the medication is there. It's not like we are dependent on that. So that is the concept tu kena betul sikit lah. Jadi kan the simple answer, does medication cause dependency? Not if antidepressant and antipsychotic. For the benzodiazepine, like ubat tidur, ubat penenang, yes, if we take regularly for more than a month or more. So kalau kita ambil seminggu sekali, tak adalah, takkan ada dependent macam tu. Yeah? And then I know that most of us who are anxious, you don't want to take anything. You takut nak ambil semua, ambil ubat batuk pun kadang-kadang you tak ambil. Takut. So that's the problem.
So basically, if you take medication, if you want to stop it, don't stop abruptly. So do psychiatrists have a withdrawal program to teach patients how to withdraw from the medication? Because I think this is one of the things that patients have done.
Yeah, I think it can be stopped, but we do gradually, temporarily, slowly, and everything just discuss with the one who supposed to help you with the medication.
Okay, alright, I just want to take one question, Okazi, since you're going. Okay, during the first session, we spoke about how psychological illness can cause physical illness and vice versa, and this is actually really true because I faced it as well. So the question is, it's similar to what I have actually as well. When you have, for example, mental disorder, then you have, your acid reflux, you have your gain, bloatedness, all these things. So the question is, why does that happen? When you have psychological illness, why does it cause physical illness?
The part of the brain, we have, our brain is very big, consider, compared to other animals. So if someone complain that you are big-headed, consider as a compliment. And then actually, the part of the brain we can divide into three parts. One is the one that control the basic function. We call it the brainstem and the below, and then the central part. The central part is the one who controls the behavior, the emotion, just like animal. We share the central part of the brain. And then God us the new brain. The new brain is the cortex, the frontal lobe, occipital lobe, and then the brain is responsible for the function of our organ. The brain is contribute to send the signal. So our body is so wonderful. The signal come from the organ to the brain, and then the brain the process, then send back to the organ. So, and then because of the brain, there's also communication from the central part. Our emotion contribute to the perception of whatever physical symptoms that we have. It is the concept of phantom limb. Remember, someone who have been cut the leg because of their diabetes or anything like, they still can feel the sensation of the leg despite no longer have the leg, because the brain that is responsible for that is still there, unless you take out a part of the brain, no longer able to feel that. So there is always a combination, the whole interaction between physical and psychological. The only happened because it's last time is the Descartes is the person who separate these two entities between the physical and the psychological. There is actually the brain is still the same organ that help us to really communicate. In fact, there is a communication between this brain. For example, as I said, the central part of the brain, we call it the old brain. This is the part responsible for sex, hunger, right? For the survival, kan? And then we have the new brain. The new brain, the frontal lobe. Frontal lobe is the one who controls this central part. Otherwise, we just like animal. For example, the central part is that you are hungry now. You want to go to the toilet. The toilet, but you're hungry now. The central part has been switched on. You're thinking about food. But your frontal lobe said, cannot listen to Dr. Hazli, he's talking now. This is the frontal lobe is make us human, socialization. Because a lot of our anxiety and depression is a product of, because we have to socialize with another human being. If we just alone in the jungle, we don't have anxiety. I can assure you don't have depression. But you maybe still have bipolar and schizophrenia. The idea that is okay.
Okay, Dr. Zainul, I know you have to go. Do you want to say any last words? Okay, those of you that have questions for him, I will pass it on to him and we will email you the answers. But if not, yes.
Okay. As I said, it's an honor for me to be here, to listen to Ustaz, to Wanita, and to be with you, because I think this is what we're supposed to do. It's nothing wrong about having a psychiatric illness. Hopefully, later, we can say, you pergi mana tu jumpa psychiatric? Ataupun you ada sakit apa? I ada sakit bipolar. So what? Macam tu lah. Then hopefully we are able to come to that age.
Positivity right there.
Yes, but it's true. I have this. So what? I can live like a normal human being as possible. But whatever doesn't kill us make us stronger. So that's what makes us stronger. Having this, you become a better person eventually. So that is the idea. It's considered this is a gift rather than it's a punishment. So that's what I would say. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so we want to talk about when we want to recover. For me, you have to find that willpower, the fight in you, because as we know, it's a constant battle every single day, day in and day out. So how do we find that willpower? A lot of people ask me about this. I really don't know how to answer that question. How do you find that willpower? I found it through anger, because I was angry at the illness for crippling me. I was angry at Shaitan because I allowed it to win. So I was constantly, I had overwhelming fear, anxiety, so many of why I couldn't function. So what is your advice? How do you find that strength? Ultimately, I found the strength through my kids, because what happened is, the illness, when you have an illness or a test, you as a family, you should, come together. But instead, when I was battling my illness, I pushed everyone away. But eventually, alhamdulillah, I found the strength through my kids. So what would you say? How do we find that willpower? Thank you.
I believe willpower, or irada, in Arabic we call it irada, comes at the end of this 5 groups that influences each other. So before we can strengthen our willpower, we have to first and foremost, we have to correct our knowledge first. Okay, I would encourage all of you to read this book written by Franz Rosenthal. He wrote a book called Knowledge Triumphant. The conclusion of the book is, there's one civilization, he's a non-Muslim, that gives a central importance to knowledge. He studied Chinese civilization, Indian civilization, Greek civilization, and Islamic civilization, and he concluded that it is the Islamic civilization that gave knowledge its central importance. He's not saying Chinese civilization does not give emphasis on knowledge, no. Or Indian civilization does not give emphasis on knowledge, no. He's saying that the civilization that gives central importance to knowledge is Islam. This is something that we need to research on. So, anything we have to begin with knowledge. We have to correct our knowledge. There's two kinds of knowledge. One is real knowledge, another one is pseudo-knowledge. Pseudo-knowledge is more dangerous than ignorance. Sometimes when we claim that we know something, okay, but Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, there is a false knowledge. Example, you see, you may claim to see water, but it's actually a Fata Morgana, or we can say a mirage. We need to have correct knowledge to correct our knowledge. Correct our knowledge on God, correct our knowledge on our beliefs, correct our knowledge on our perception of prophets and the purpose of life. Number two, I believe we need to correct our thinking. Okay, thinking process. Sometimes our thoughts are not structured, we commit fallacies. When we commit fallacies in thought, we will actually come to wrong conclusions of things. Okay? If someone were to say, I know there's fire, okay, but you can see that he is actually walking towards the fire, that means something is not right with the knowledge. He knows it's fire, but he's walking towards it. No? He knows that fire is dangerous, he shouldn't come close to it, but he's moving towards it. He's actually trying to do something with the fire. It means something is not right with the knowledge. Dalam ilmu tu ada masalah. Okay? And number two is with thinking. Masalah pada cara berfikir. The next one will be is to change our experience. Sometimes our experiences have destroyed our willpower. Because sometimes we are around negative people, toxic people, until we come to the conclusion by saying, Ustaz, we cannot trust anyone. How many times have we hear people speak like that? Especially modern people lah. You don't hear orang kampung say like that. You see, people who live in cities. Because to me, part of the problem is city life itself. Okay, part of our problem is our city life itself. So I will encourage those who are challenged, mentally, to take time off in natural settings. Okay, and just now Dr. Hazli speak about, sometimes our problem comes from interaction with other human beings. That's why the prophets taught us to have uzlah sometimes, to make safar, to leave people. Sometimes people are the problems. Leave people. Be with yourself, be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to change our experience, and part of our experience is people. We need to find a new group of associates, new group of circle of friends, and we need to be able to step out of our comfort zones because we love our current social setting, our friends, our family. Sometimes you need to know people who you do not want to know sometimes. I want to know this guy, I want to know this sheikh or that maulana or that friend or that doctor. Get out from the comfort zone, change your experience. And last, before changing your willpower, helping your willpower to recharge itself, is that we have to change our feelings towards things. And how we change our feelings towards things is by changing the first thing. How we feel towards something. Now, one of the things that we are taught in Islam is that our feelings must be subjected to ibadah also. Some people claim that it is my feeling to stress. My feeling will be triggered when certain things happen. But Rasulullah SAW taught us a dua. Allahumma habib ilayya al-iman. Oh Allah, make me love good things. That means we can put effort to love, to like, or to hate certain things. Okay? And the other part of the ayat or the dua is that Rasulullah asks us to say, oh Allah, make us hate evil. That means even our emotion must be subjected to ibadah.
You should not leave it to autopilot mode. Nak kena subject dia pada demands of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So by changing these four, automatically the desire and the willpower will change. This is my belief. Okay? Automatically you change the first four, number 5 tu. Because how do you change someone who just loves certain things? Daripada kecil sampai besar memang suka benda, likes that thing. Why do you like certain things? Because of knowledge, because of experience, because of the circle of friends, because of all these things. So we need to change all of this to strengthen our willpower. Desire, Allah.
Thank you very much, Ustaz. Ustaz, how about patients that have been battling the illness or the disorder for many years, despite taking medication, going through cognitive behavioral therapy, doing their ibadah, etc. So what are they not doing right because they still have not recovered and still constantly are fighting this illness?
Some of us may think that since I'm still facing this problem, that means I've been doing things wrongly, maybe. But yes and no. Sometimes it's right, we have not been doing things correctly. But sometimes also Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has a purpose which He wants to prolong it. Remember the purpose of a tribulation. We need to put that central in our discussion. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala sometimes prolong a test to elevate someone. Now this hadith is very important. Rasulullah SAW said this. I quote this hadith very tightly in my heart. يود أهل العافية يوم القيامة حين يعطى أهل البلاء الثواب لو كانت جلودهم قرضت بالمقارض. This hadith is narrated by Imam Tirmidhi. Very important hadith. Rasulullah says this. In Akhirah, when Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will give up the rewards for those who were tested severely on earth, those who were not tested that much will look and will hope that when they were in dunya, they were cut to pieces with scissors. What does that mean? It means the greater the test, the greater the reward. And we do not know what is that reward until we will want to be cut to pieces to receive that. That means all these sufferings will become very insignificant when we were to compare it with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's reward. Another hadith, very important one. Rasulullah SAW said, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in Akhirah will call upon those who have been tested most severely throughout human history. Allah will cause this person, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will dip him just once in Jannah, in paradise, and will take him out from paradise and will ask him, have you ever suffered? That person will respond by saying, no, Ya Allah, I have not suffered at all. And then Allah will call the person who has been given the most pleasure throughout human history, and he will be dipped just a single second in hellfire, and he will be asked, have you ever experienced any pleasure? The person will say, no God, I have not experienced a single form of pleasure. A glimpse of pleasure I have not seen. Why is that so? Because of the severity of the punishment and because of the intensity of the pleasure that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has in store for us. So, if we were to stop our view only to dunya, that's when our problem becomes so big that we think that we cannot overcome it. But if you were to extend your journey of life to after dunya, suddenly there's another reality that is waiting for us out there. We are not stuck with this. Okay? We are not stuck with this. So sometimes Allah prolong it for this purpose, just to elevate. Some ask, Ustaz, how come you see children who have not committed any sins? They kena cancer, they die early. Why is that so? Because Allah says in the Quran, Inna Allah ashtara min al-mu'minina anfusahum bi anna lahumul jannah. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala have purchased from the mu'minun themselves so that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will repay them with Jannah. So these children, they have not the ability to sell their souls to Allah. You either sell your soul to God or you sell your soul to the devil. There's only two possibilities. And it's a very beautiful thing to say also to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah will give you something greater than your own self. So these children, Allah will purchase from them themselves, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, will compensate to them something greater than their own selves. So in Akhirah, they will look back and say, thank you Allah, it is because of this, you give this great pleasure to me, and this great maqam, and this great elevation in Akhirah. If I was not tested, then I will be among the others. Normal, biasa-biasa saja. So Allah sometimes choose who He wants. Okay? So this problem of evil is very important thing to note at. And then also, because why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prolong our test is of course because we've done things wrongly, or we have repeated our same mistakes. Remember the three things that the Star newspaper have released, the main factors, the main elements that led to mental illness in Malaysia. Number one is financial distress, and most of the time it's because we have placed on our shoulders unnecessary financial burdens, credit cards, and unnecessary spending beyond our means. This is a real problem, brothers and sisters. This life that we are living in, this social setting that is shackled with debt, house, debt, rumah, debt, and then on top of that we take extra debt. How can we be clear? How can we be tenang, tranquil when we are shackled with that? So Rasulullah SAW taught us a prayer. Allahumma inna na'udzubika min al-hammi wal hazan, na'udzubika min al-'ajzi wal kasal, na'udzubika min jubn al-bukhl, wa na'udzubika min ghalabati ad-dayn wa qahr ar-rijal. One of the things that Rasulullah SAW seek refuge from is being shackled with debt and being overpowered by other human beings. Because every time you are shackled with debt, you will be overpowered. And when you are overpowered with people who only want dunya, that means they will steal away your happiness from you also. So please, one of the ways to recovery is to cut your credit cards, to stop taking more debts. That's one of the ways of recovery. Okay? Don't take, kalau dah ada hutang sekarang, kita tak boleh buat apa, we have to repay, but do not play with fire by taking more debt. Number two is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, expectations. Why do we have too high expectations? Fantastic, not good, fantasy, because fantasy comes from fantasy. Fantastic expectation. Why? Because we love the dunya so much. We want this and want that, we want this and want that. That's why Allah sometimes come and break our back. Say, you want the dunya so much, this is the reality of dunya. I break it up for you. You want this pearl so much, but I'm telling you that this pearl is inauthentic. I'm crushing it in front of you. Do you see it's inauthentic? Sometimes Allah is forced to do that, you understand? Because we just want it. We see something that is actually very bad, but we see it as good. So Allah sometimes have to come and show it to us. You want this? You really want this? Then we got upset. Oh, dunya is not that beautiful. Dunya is that only pleasure. No. Who told you that? One of our scholars say the dunya is where our desires are broken. This is the place where our demands and desires are broken. Have we come to terms with that? Oh no, Ustad, this is the place where I fulfill my dreams. Yeah. What is your dream? If your dream is in line with Allah's demand from you, then you are fine. But if your dreams are totally something else that you created out of nowhere, then you are in danger. You are in danger. So manage your expectation. Expect what Allah expects from you. Expect what Allah expects from us. Okay? That is submission, to submit to that. Are we willing to surrender to that? No, I do not want to surrender. I want what I want. Itu konflik. Berlawan dengan Allah, berlawan dengan kata-kata. How can we be tenang with that? No. Flow with the river of God. Flow with the river of qadar and qadar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And flow with the Sharia. So as not to be in conflict with it. To be in conflict with the Sharia is adab, is hell in dunya. To be in conflict with the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is hell before that hell. Okay? So flow with it. There's ni'mah there. If you were to trust Allah, Allah will sometimes ask us to do things that we don't like. But that's wisdom. Sometimes we cannot see it because the level of our knowledge is somewhere, and Allah is of course somewhere else. Of course we cannot see the hikmah. So this is where trust is needed. So that when we were a child, sometimes our father will throw us. So that campak, imam control, imam. And you see the baby will be panic, kan? The panicky face of the baby, right? But when the baby lands in the hands, start laughing. Next time you throw, panic. But after 10-20 times you do it, the baby will stop panicking. Why? There's trust. The first time there's no trust. What are you trying to do with me? We are, I believe most over here are above 30, most of us. Allah dah timang banyak kali dah. Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala have done that to us how many times? Still we don't trust. Why are you doing this? But don't worry, you are in safe hands. I like to do this to you because this is my sense of humor. You know, so that you know and you can trust me. You know, that's our relationship with Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. We need to know this, that Allah has sense of humor. Sometimes we have to laugh sometimes at our problems. Laugh at us, laugh at ourselves, laugh at syaitan also, laugh at dunia, laugh at dunia. Okay, I dah drag kau ni, tak tahu. Tapi when it comes, it comes. When it comes, it comes. This is the river also. Okay, so Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, we do not do things rightly. Kita repeat our sins. And the last one is our social setting. What makes you think that you are shackled with your social setting? Family, of course. I do not say throw away your family. Astaghfirullah. That is a test that you cannot remove. But what about friends? What about your country? What about your other workplace? What makes you think that you will be shackled by it forever? So in Islam there's a concept of hijrah. Hijrah is not only about hijrah country, but sometimes hijrah workplace, sometimes hijrah friends. Right? Hijrah from your friends. I've seen people who regain their health, their mental health, just by changing their friends because they've been talking to the wrong people. I think I have a problem. Yeah, I also think you have a problem. Very serious. Has been long, I want to tell you, your problem. Oh, serious. I think no hope. You're like this, I think. I do not know who can help you. Does that help? Some people speak like that. I do not know who can help you. That means you're mixing the wrong people. There are other people who will give you hope, not only hope, way out. Be with wise people. I ask you here, how many wise people you know in your life? Not intelligent, ada PhD ke, ustaz ke tak. Wise people who can give you their time and speak word of wisdom and can guide you to right action. Maybe your datuk, your nenek, your jiran, your anak saudara, your adik saudara, your abang saudara, your sepupu. But if you do not have these people, then you need to be worried and you need to find one. Ustaz, I don't trust anyone. You are the problem. How come you say you don't trust anyone? That means you have not mixed around with the right people. And we are sometimes arrogant. We think that everyone is bad just because we have encountered 20 bad people. How many people are there in dunya? Right? How can we say, oh Ustaz, you don't know me, Ustaz. I went through all this nonsense with all these people. Everyone is selfish, Ustaz. Everyone wants what they want. I mean, don't end up like that. That is part of thinking back of Allah. Because Allah trusts there's some good in human being. When Allah created Nabi Adam, what did angels say? When Allah wanted to create Nabi Adam, the angels protest, right? Semi-protest lah, not protestfully. Allah, why are you going to create human beings who are going to create havoc on earth? Allah said, no, I know something about them that you do not know. Allah, it's like a father saying, no, I know about my son. I know my son. I know my son. Of course, Allah is not our father in that sense. But in terms of love, Allah loves us more than our father loves us. But He knows something about us. What is that thing? Aren't you not interested to know? When Allah says, I know something about human beings, that means there's good in you. I've planted that good in you. So if you were to say everyone is bad, you've not been mixing enough. Mix around, find good people, ask Allah for help. Ask Allah for help. Ya Allah, show me good human beings. There are. But you need to leave your social settings for a while. Go to a place that you're not comfortable with. Meet people who you're not comfortable with. Kalau you dengar pusing-pusing kat situ, saya tak jumpa. You want to buy a sheep, you don't go to a fish shop, isn't it? Nak beli kambing, pergi kedai ikan. I don't find any kambing lah Ustaz. I mean, you pergi kedai ikan, berhad. Bukan? That is
Okay, last one. Can you suggest what other Islamic forms of therapy for psychological challenges, and also if you can share some powerful thinking to
Okay, thank you so much. Very important question. Now, Dr. Hazri has discussed with him for this issue. He did not reject this concept of ruqyah or spiritual therapy, ruqyah with therapy with the Quran. Some of you want to know, Ustaz, saya ni masalah depression ke, bipolar ke, atau ada jin Ustaz? Very simple. Quran and Islam is for everyone. Even for non-Muslims, you can do this. just to give them a glimpse of the power of the Quran. You know, there are non-Muslims who listen to the Quran and receive profound effect. Okay, if you want to know whether you are being disturbed by any entities, spirit, okay, jinn, shaitan, just go home before you sleep. You take earphone himself, okay, headphone, not earphone, headphone. Okay, close your eyes, go to YouTube, type Ruqyah, R-U-Q-Y-A-H. There are different versions of Ruqyah. There are 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour. Okay, I suggest 20 minutes will be enough. Just close your eyes. Don't worry, no exorcist story will happen. Okay, I know people are too fearful of this. Say, what if this, that, what if that, what if I crawl on the wall? All of these things will not happen, do not worry. If there are some disturbances, there will be clear reaction. Example, you will feel heat, extreme heat in certain areas in your body. Okay, extreme heat, even people who come and touch, they can feel that heat. This is not psychological and perceptual level only. This is in reality objective heat. That means other people also can feel it. Abnormal heat. Doktor pun cakap apa benda yeah. Or sometimes abnormal movements you will do. Sometimes when you open your eyes, suddenly your hand is already up. You don't realize it. Your tangan bergerak, you don't realize it. Okay? Or you feel movements in your body. Ustaz takut, Ustaz tak nak buat lah. Okay, you feel movements in your body. I'm not joking. This is sometimes that thing runs away because Rasulullah SAW said, "Syaitan yajri Bani Adam majrad dam." The shaitan runs in the body of human beings through the blood vessels. This is not literal. Sorry, this is not metaphorical. It is literal. Okay, there's some physicality, physical dimension to the jinn and shayateen that it can run through our blood vessels. Okay, so sometimes you can feel whatever it is. When you listen to the Ruqyah, if you have something wrong with you, the spirit disturbance, you will something really out of normal will happen to you. But nothing will harm you. Do not worry. One thing about the Quran is that the therapy of the Quran will not harm you. Okay, even if you do not have some jinn disturbances, listening to the Quran every day helps. Why? Because it resets your fitrah. It takes you back to your natural disposition, especially when you understand what you are reading. Right? It means you are the creature of God. Itu reset fitrah. You are not in a rat race because you are not a rat. You're not living in a dog world because you are not a dog. You are a human being. Okay? You have a spirit. You are a higher creature of God. You're not only a biology, neurons in the head. You know, electrical signals in your head. You're more than that. Itu resetting. And then when you read about your family, how important is family life? Today we have a crisis of people running away from having family. Okay, people who do not have any trouble also tak nak kahwin. That is part of a problem in a modern society. Islam encourages people to be in a community, communal. Ini salah satu terapi Islam, to be in a jama'ah. Don't only know one, two people in your life. Know a group of good people. Until you know a group of good people, don't stop finding them. Do not give up. There are good people out there. Rasulullah SAW said so. There will be good people until the end of time. What do I mean by good people? People who do not do things because of selfish desires, because of personal agendas, because they want some dunya from whatever they are doing. I met such people, and I affirm to you there are this kind of people. But maybe you are finding the wrong places. Salah tempat cari. Okay, salah tempat cari. Allahumma salli alaihi wasallam. So jama'ah, being a jama'ah, that's one important thing. Listening to the Quran. Another one will be what we call as Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, tafakkur and tadhakkur. This tafakkur and tadhakkur, I did a program before. It takes some time to explain macam mana nak buat tafakkur properly. Imam Ghazali said, without tafakkur, without proper fikr, you cannot make proper dhikr. Because I only hear people say, oh, make dhikr. You want to feel tranquil, make dhikr. But you cannot make dhikr unless you make proper fikr. Because dhikr is recalling, fikr is producing new knowledge. That means a Muslim must always produce new knowledge for himself. And fikr is about marrying two things that you already know to produce a third thing that is previously unknown to you. That is fikr. You need to do much fikr, so you produce new knowledge for yourself. So when you make dhikr, you remember that new knowledge that you have produced. about Allah and about reality. That is fikir and zikir. Ada teknik nak buat dia. It's not about saying Allah, 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 of course, but it's very important. And then I wouldn't rule out the importance of our basic ibadah. People will ask, Ustaz, can you give me extra ibadat, extra doa? But the basic ibadah itself is profound already. Look, the first thing that we need to do is istinja, taharah. The first thing that we learn as a Muslim, for example, is istinja. Clean yourself inwardly and outwardly. You cannot clean yourself inwardly unless you clean yourself outwardly. From your pee, from your najis feces, clean your body with water. That means water therapy is very important. Mandi, jangan mandi air panas. Do not bathe with water shower. Bathe with how Rasulullah, how the prophets bathe. They didn't use shower because the flow of the water is important. You can notice the difference. Try mandi pakai gayung dengan mandi pakai air paip hujan. They are very vast different. Okay, so pakai water therapy and take wudu also with gayung. Jangan pakai jangan pakai air hujan. Apa dia bagi tu paip hujan. Shower. Pakai gayung and take the water with your hand. And every time you wash your body, you have to actually internalize the meaning. When you wash your face in wudu, what do you have in your heart? What do you say in your heart? Not only the niat, Allah saja kau kat wudu kerana Allah. We need to go beyond this, brothers and sisters. Islam is beautiful. What we have to do is, Ya Allah, as I wash my face, please wash all the sins of my eyes, my nose, my ears, from all the bad thoughts that I have, thinking bad of people, fitnah that I've made with my tongue. It's profound. And look, when the water falls down from your face, look at it and think as if that all of your sins have went away. In NLP they do this also, neuro-linguistic programming. But we have this, we do not tap on it. That's our problem. We have love-hate relationship with Islam. The things that we like, we take. The things that we hate, we throw away. That means that is not submission. We are creating our own religion called Mislam, not Islam, Mislam. Okay, so basuh tangan, basuh muka, basuh kepala dengan ni. Ya Allah, I clean my head, I clean my leg from walking to the wrong places, going towards the wrong directions in my life. So it's an experience. People take wudu thinking that, oh, I need to take wudu to pray. That means wudu is like a key. Just open the key and then you go. No, when you basuh your kaki, it's an experience. It's an experience. Take your time. Have you seen great men of God take wudu, take ablution? Not like us, the whole mosque basah, but you tak wudu. Kecah semua. Look at them when they take wudu. They are conscious. They are looking. They remember the hand that Allah gave them. MashaAllah, this beautiful hand Allah gave me. This head, this eyes, this tongue, this kaki. They appreciate their body because it is the clothes that Allah gave you to enclose your spirit. Okay, so that is wudu. And then when it comes to salat, you know how profound salat is. Firstly, you have to direct yourself to the Qibla, isn't it? Why is that so? Not like Mr. Bean. There is no Qibla for Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean do not know where is his Qibla. We know where we are going, towards God. Where is the direction? Your body must be towards the direction. You need to stand up. You need to come clean with God. Stand up and say, the first thing that you have to say is Allahu Akbar. Meaning Allah is the most important in life. Nothing else. Everything else is number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He created me. How many of us have a problem in coming to terms with that? Is Allah the most important entity in our life? You say, yeah lah, God lah, but that one, we know already. Yeah lah, I know we have to worship, but this one not sincere. Allah, you know what is Allah? Who is Allah? He's more important than your parents, than your children, than your career, than anything else. Happiness comes from Him. Misery also comes from Him. Why are we not taking Him seriously? We take Him as like a fantasy figure on the clouds, like Santa Claus or something. No, He's real, He's close. Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. Say it. Your ear must dengar kan dalam syarat mazhab Syafi'i. You have to say, you cannot say Allahu Akbar. No, Allahu Akbar. Allah is the most important. Not my word, anything else. Okay? And your tangan you buat macam mana? As if you are living behind your dunya. And then you put it like this. You stand, you do not move, you do not scratch here and there. You discipline yourself. Walaupun the impulse nak scratch, Kan, kadang-kadang very strong. But you can hold yourself in salat. How come we can do that in salat? Outside of salat, suddenly we don't bring our salat into our life. That's the problem. We stop salat when salat ends with salam. We should bring our salat outside of our salat. That's the purpose of salat. And then we read Fatiha. Ya Allah, look at Surah Al-Fatiha. You know, when you meet psychiatrists, they will give you something that you need to recite sometimes. Affirmation that you are a good person. You know, they will tell you that. In Islam, we are taught to connect it with God and say it to ourselves. In Salatul Jama'ah, we recite it for other people also. Right? We say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Allah repeat Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim twice. Most merciful, most compassionate. Malik Yawmiddin, He owns everything. You don't own anything. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. It is to you that I ask for help. It is to you that I worship. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Always guide me to the right path. That means we know that we, as a creature of God, always deviate from truth. That means we need Allah to guide us. That is humility. Betul lah? We have made mistakes. We have to accept that. Many people do not want to hear that. We have made mistakes, especially modern men living in a city like Kuala Lumpur. Okay, we have abandoned Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the result of that is that we taste some pain. It is for Allah to call us back. So recite Surah Al-Fatiha sampai habis, and then when you do ruku, understand what is ruku is, i'tidal, and then when you do sujud, that's when your jantung degup paling tenang sekali. Betul tak? It's not while you are lying, it is while you are making sujud. That is the most tranquil beating of the heart. Okay? Why is that so? Because your head is on the ground. You are submitting your organ of management to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This obsession with management, managing things, you know, I'm not saying management is wrong, but obsession with management, that is the problem. So our basic ibadah itself is already profound if we internalize it. If you to look at it, its philosophy, its principles, it can heal so many issues. Actually, I've listed down more than 15 ways, okay, Islamic way of therapy, but maybe other sessions or what, I cannot explain everything. Sedih lah nak cakap ni. But we don't have time. Yeah. Yes, of course. Zikr to me is la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But for different people, different zikr. That is why we have doctors. When you go to the Muslim doctors 1,000 years ago, they will not only prescribe to you herbs and drugs. They will prescribe to you dhikr also. They will look at you and say, abang ni arrogant ni. You have arrogance problem. So one of the ways for you to heal yourself is to say, Al-Mutakabbir, Al-Mutakabbir, Al-Mutakabbir. Say that Allah is the great one, not you. Okay, say Allah, Al-Aziz, 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 Allah Al-Aziz, Allah Al-Aziz, Allah Al-Aziz. But for people who are already humble, you need terlalu humble ni. Sampai tak ada self-esteem. So you need to read what? Al-Mu'ti, for example, Al-Jabbar, Al-Qahhar. These are the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can give us strength if we understand it. So different people need different diagnoses. But to me, generally, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is very important. There's no daya dan upaya. There's no might
no
and power. Difficult to translate hawl and quwwah. But through Allah, by Allah, for Allah, to Allah. Okay, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. But if you were to forget that pun tak apa. After subuh and after maghrib, recite La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, yuhyi wa yumiit wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, yuhyi wa yumiit wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. Imagine listening to that 100 times. That is just the sound of it. That is just the vibration that comes from the mad prolongation and also from the dengung, humming. Imagine if you understand the meaning. There is no God but Him, the only one. There is no partner to Him. Lahul mulk, all kingdom belongs to Him. Wa lahul hamd, and all praises belongs to Him. Wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, and He is powerful above all things. Imagine if you repeat that more than 10 times after subuh and after maghrib. That's a very affirmative statement. It's very strong. And open up yourself to listen to your own voice and take in the meaning. Do not resist. say that there is no God but God, there is only one, and say that He is all powerful above all things. He is the one who let me feel these things. He is the one who tried me with all these tribulations. But He is also powerful to take it away from me. Right? So that is the affirmation. And then we learn how to pasrah. Pasrah is apa dalam bahasa Melayu? Very beautiful term. Pasrah doesn't mean give up. Pasrah is a very positive and proactive term. Pasrah means I accept this qadar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I will continue to have good opinion on Him. But I will accept that I have no means to get out from this mess now. But I accepted His trial, test and tribulation, and I have good opinion of Him. I know at the end of the day, things will turn out good. In the end of the day, things will turn out good. Rasulullah SAW said in one of the most important hadiths in this issue about suffering, Ajaban bi amril mu'min. Rasulullah SAW said, I am amazed by the affairs of the mu'min, of the believers in God. If they were tested by God, they will be patient, and that is good for them. If they were given blessings, they will be grateful, and that is also good for him. So Rasulullah asked, when comes evil for a mu'min? This is good, this is also good. Patience is good, shukr is good. So all of our matters are good if you were to believe in God. So the foundation of reality is Allah. You remove God out of the picture, no one can help you. You remove Allah out of the picture, no one can help you. No psychiatrist, nothing can help you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs to be central in your life. That is the therapy. Is to be in contact with Allah back, to strengthen the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not arrogance, but I'm telling you, there's nothing greater than this statement. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We come from Allah and we return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't fight this. Don't fight it. Accept it. Don't say, no lah, this ustaz tak faham. Don't do that. Accept this. Allah is the most important and He is the way out to our problem. Once you accept that, insyaAllah, you will feel that the burden will be lifted.
Alright, so we have come to the end of the program. Thank you very much, Ustaz and Opasti. We truly hope that everyone found this session beneficial. We will do a third session for the Journey to Recovery program. I'd like to, once again, I really hope that this is something that you can bring with you, inshallah, and benefit you fully. May Allah heal all of you that are struggling. May Allah show you a way out of your struggles. Before we end, I would like to invite Ustaz to give the closing dua, inshallah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us ridha. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to substitute our pain with eternal pleasure. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for patience. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for good opinion of Him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He lighten our burden. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He continue to love us and to look at us with compassion, with mercy. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we can come to terms with the reality and the meaning and the purpose of life. We are just His servant. We choose to be here because the fact that we are already here, that means we choose to be here. If we do not choose to be here, then Allah will not have created us, because He is the just, He is the merciful, He is Al-Adil, He is Ar-Rahman, and there's beauty in His life. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show us that beauty, to make us taste beauty, to make us taste happiness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give patience to the people around us, our families. We ask Allah to reward them, those people who went through thick and things with us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to substitute with something greater. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all of us and to forgive all of the Ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad, and to those who are sincere for God. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all of us and guide us till the end. We ask Allah to never leave us behind. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from thinking that we can settle our problems ourselves and we do not need Him. We ask Allah to protect us from that. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the devil, from shaitan, and from the evils of the dunya. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.